I was reborn when the campus heartthrob had fallen on hard times. This time, I didn't spend money to make him my boyfriend again. Instead, I gave him and his childhood sweetheart my blessing. In my last life, I fell for the campus heartthrob, Gu Qingyan, and pursued him relentlessly. When I found out that the childhood friend who grew up with him in the orphanage had fallen ill and desperately needed a large sum for medical bills, I ignored his cold attitude, paid for her treatment, and made one condition: he had to be my boyfriend at my graduation party. After getting drunk, I accidentally ended up pregnant with his child, and he was forced to marry me. But on the wedding day, his childhood sweetheart, heartbroken, ran out of the hospital and was killed in a car accident. Before she died, she called him 39 times for help, yet Gu Qingyan was too busy getting married to answer the calls. On the surface, he stayed calm, slipped the wedding ring onto my finger, and promised to protect me for the rest of my life. But on the day I went into labor after 10 months of pregnancy, he blocked the ambulance. He forcibly dragged me to the place where his childhood sweetheart had died and made me kneel there in repentance. Clutching my stomach in agony, I begged him, "Honey, my stomach hurts so bad, I'm about to give birth. Please take me to the hospital first." Gu Qingyan, his eyes bloodshot, roared, "If you hadn't arrogantly taken it upon yourself to support me, and if you hadn't climbed into my bed after I got drunk, why would I have married you? Why else would I have missed Qingqing's call? You deserve to die." Then I'd just let the roaring truck grind me and the baby in my belly into minced flesh. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day when the campus heartthrob was frantic over his younger sister's medical bills. Shinponchi, cut out that spoiled rich girl act. Gu Qingyan's face was twisted with humiliation. His eyes were bloodshot as he slapped the bank card I held out, knocking it away hard. "Even if I, Gu Qingyan, die, I'll never take your filthy money." The card scraped across the floor with a grating screech, like the sound of my bones being crushed under a truck. In my previous life, clearly, he had been reborn too. In those eyes looking at me, there was none of the astonishment from our first meeting in my previous life, only deep-seated hatred and disgust. "Shinponchi, think having a few extra bucks makes you all that? Let me tell you, even if you threw 100 million yuan in my face, I still wouldn't spare you a glance or become your dog." He thought I would still be like I was in my previous life, using money to pressure him, using love to chain him to me. Before I could say anything, I heard a frail coughing fit coming from the hospital room. Chu Qingqing was wearing a hospital gown, leaning weakly against the doorway, her face pale and her eyes red-rimmed. "Brother Qingyan, don't be like this, hurry up and apologize to Ponchi. It's all my fault. If it weren't for my illness, you wouldn't have had to suffer this humiliation." As she spoke, tears began falling in a steady stream, making her look pitiful and heartbreaking. Gu Qingyan immediately turned around and pulled her into his arms, his voice softening by several degrees at once. "Qingqing, this has nothing to do with you. Don't overthink it. I'll handle the money." The two of them were putting on a show of deep, unwavering devotion, while I felt absolutely nothing. If anything, I almost laughed. In my past life, I was drawn to that unbending, stubborn pride of his, thinking he was cold, aloof, and so different from those flashy, trashy women out there. Looking back, he was nothing more than a fool blinded by some cheap, low-grade tea. I bent down and picked up the bank card from the floor, put it back in my bag, and said calmly, "This money was pooled together by the whole class. It comes to 3,782 yuan. They asked me to bring it over as their representative. Since you, Mr. Gu, the campus heartthrob, are so proud and principled, I'll take it back with me." After saying that, I turned and left without the slightest hesitation. Gu Qingyan stared at me in astonishment, clearly never expecting that I, the hopelessly devoted fool who loved him to the bone, wouldn't beg him to take the money, but would simply turn and leave after he refused. This time around, I certainly wouldn't be stupid again. I just wanted to stay as far away from those two as possible. All I had to do was wait a month, fly to England, and start a new life of my own. In my previous life, for Gu Qingyan's sake, I turned down an offer from a world-class top university and was willing to dim every bit of my own brilliance, becoming his stepping stone to the top. I used the Shin family's resources to pave the way for him, turning him from a penniless nobody into a rising star in the business world. But when the Shin family had been drained dry and was on the verge of bankruptcy, he turned around and bought it up on the cheap. My father was so enraged he suffered a stroke and ended up in the hospital, and all he said was that it was karma for me trying to force myself on him. This time around, I will never have anything to do with him again. After I got home, I asked the housekeeper to gather up everything in the villa that had to do with Gu Qingyan, only to find they were all worthless trinkets: his notebooks, pens, buttons, and the notebook filled with notes of love for him. I tossed them all into the trash. As for the cheap green glass bracelet on my wrist, I planned to give it back to him. He'd bought it for his childhood sweetheart, but she thought it was too cheap and turned it down, so he casually passed it to me. I wore it like a treasure for 2.5 years. Looking back now, I really had been blind as a bat back then. Just because he got to me before the bodyguard did and pulled me out of the water, I fell hopelessly in love with him after I woke up. But how could a man who wouldn't even spare me a single shred of his heart be worthy of my passionate love? Gu Qingyan really was reborn with his memories intact. Within a week, I heard that he had somehow scraped together 500,000 yuan through a few short-term investments no one had paid attention to. Almost miraculously, in a dazzling show of generosity, he paid off all of Chu Qingqing's medical bills, and Chu Qingqing finally agreed to be with Gu Qingyan. The campus forum was flooded with posts like, "The campus heartthrob works miracles for love," and "The poor genius student pulls off a stunning comeback." Photos of him and Chu Qingqing embracing affectionately at the hospital billing counter were also circulating everywhere. In the photo, Chu Qingqing is beaming with a radiant, blissful smile, while Gu Qingyan looks at her with unmistakable doting affection. They became the kind of fairy tale couple everyone at school envied. A few of Chu Qingqing's girlfriends also mocked me mercilessly, laughing at me, this pathetic bootlicker, for still thinking I could break Chu Qingqing and Gu Qingyan apart. As for me, I didn't care one bit. Before leaving the country, I decided to visit Grandma at the hospital first. Grandma was in fairly good spirits. She just held my hand and kept repeating herself, "Ponchi, you silly girl, why the sudden change of heart about studying abroad? And Gu Qingyan, are you really willing to give him up? You once told Grandma firmly that you'd never marry anyone but him in this lifetime." A trace of bitterness rose in my heart. In my past life, I gave him so much, but even in death, I still couldn't warm his heart. In this life, I'm never going to love him again, I said with a smile. "Grandma, I stopped liking him a long time ago. I have my own plans for my life." Grandma smiled and patted my head. "I always thought this young man had no backbone and was far too calculating. My precious Wanchi is so wonderful, it's his loss." After Grandma fell asleep, I left the hospital room and prepared to go. As I rounded the corner of the hallway, I ran straight into someone. It was Gu Qingyan. The moment he saw me, his expression darkened, his eyes full of contempt and mockery. "Shen Ponchi, I knew it, you still haven't given up. What's wrong? Seeing me pay Qingqing's medical bills made you jealous. You came all the way to the hospital. What are you planning to do to her?" I frowned. "I came to the hospital to see my grandma." "Ha, that excuse is really pathetic." He let out a cold laugh. "Don't think I don't know what you're really up to. Aren't you just jealous that Qingqing got my love? Shen Ponchi, let me tell you, a pathetic gold-digging dog like you, who only knows how to throw money at people, doesn't deserve anyone's genuine feelings." His words were like knives, each one striking straight at the heart. At that moment, Chu Qingqing came out of the hospital room looking frail and delicate, and gently tugged at Gu Qingyan's sleeve. "Brother Qingyan, stop saying that, classmate. Ponchi probably really just came to visit a family member." She was trying to talk him down, but a smug glint flashed in her eyes. "Ponchi, I know you like Brother Qingyan, but you can't force matters of the heart. Brother Qingyan and I grew up together, and our bond can't be measured by money. Please stop pressuring me to leave Brother Qingyan." What she said only poured oil on the fire. Gu Qingyan's misunderstanding of me deepened even more. He shoved me hard and said, "Get lost, don't ever let me see you again." He shoved me so hard that I stumbled into the wall, and the glass bracelet on my wrist shattered on impact. Sharp shards of glass cut into my palm, and blood gushed out at once. "Shen Ponchi, I didn't mean to." Gu Qingyan's pupils contracted sharply, and he instinctively reached out to steady me. Just then, Chu Qingqing went weak and fell toward him. "Qingyan, I feel so dizzy." Gu Qingyan immediately pulled back the hand he had only half extended, then hurriedly carried her back to the ward. "Qingqing, what's wrong? Are you feeling unwell somewhere?" Watching his panicked, frantic expression, I let out a cold laugh. Back when I was crushed to death by that truck, he had looked at me with nothing but hatred and never even took a step toward me. Chu Qingqing was perfectly fine and just pretending to be dizzy, yet he panicked and lost all sense of proportion, terrified that anything might happen to his precious darling. I stood up, didn't even glance at the broken bracelet on the floor, and turned to the nurse's station to have my wound bandaged. After my hand had been injured for a few days and the wound had scabbed over, I finally went back to school. Mostly, I was there to say goodbye to my teachers and classmates and take care of the paperwork before studying abroad. I walked into the classroom, only to find my seat piled high with stuff, like a little mountain. Expensive limited edition sneakers, the latest game console, and that out-of-print manga I ran all over the city to get, and there was also a crookedly knitted scarf, one I'd stayed up for several all-nighters to finish, pricking my fingers countless times along the way. These were all gifts from the past 2 years, each carrying all my love. Now, they were all piled up on my desk by Gu Qingyan like trash. Gu Qingyan stood nearby, arms crossed, a cold, mocking smile on his face. Shinpanchi, I'm already with Qingqing, take your things back, and stop pestering me from now on. Qingqing will get jealous. His voice wasn't loud, but it was enough for everyone in the classroom to hear him clearly. The students around me started whispering, and the looks they shot my way were full of sympathy, contempt, and gloating anticipation, eager to watch the show. Now this is going to be interesting. Shinpanchi really went all out when she was trying to chase the campus heartthrob, but now he sent her stuff back. What an utter humiliation. Serves her right, who told her to keep trying to wedge herself between the campus heartthrob and Chu Qingqing. He already said he didn't like her, but she still kept throwing herself at him like a clingy dog. Did she really think a bit of dirty money would make him cave? Exactly. She usually acts like she's above everyone else just because she has a little money. It's about time she got a taste of what it feels like to have money and still not win the affection of the person she likes. I lifted my eyes to look at the few people talking about me. On ordinary days, I would share the limited edition chocolates my dad brought back from business trips with them, and whenever they were in trouble, I'd hand over money without a second thought. But in their eyes, my genuine help and kindness had all become nothing more than the arrogance of a rich person. It'd be a lie to say I wasn't chilled to the bone. Just as my chest tightened and I was about to say something, Lu Zimo grabbed Gu Qingyan by the collar and defended me with a fierce look on his face. Who gave you the right to talk about Panchi? She's prettier than your little green tea. Her grades are better than your little green teas. She's been in the top 10 of the class all year, and her family background is beyond anything you could ever match in 8 lifetimes. Your little green tea only knows how to stir up trouble behind people's backs. My Panchi is honest and straightforward, and that's exactly why I like her bold attitude. You don't want such a great girl, yet. You're still flattering yourself, thinking Panchi came to school to make peace with you. Dream on. She came to school because she's about to. Zimo, stop talking. I cut Lu Zimo off. This is between Gu Qingyan and me, and I don't want to drag anyone else into it. I used to be pretty outspoken, but Gu Qingyan said he didn't like girls who were too domineering, so I slowly pieced myself into the kind of person he liked, learning to act obedient and understanding, until I lost sight of who I really was. Now that I'm about to start a new life, I can't be bothered to stir up more trouble. As my hand reached for Lu Zimo's arm, he shot Gu Qingyan a glare like a lion being petted the right way, then said nothing more. I looked at Gu Qingyan. Everything's been returned. We're even now. From here on out, if we ever meet again, let's treat each other like strangers. Gu Qingyan's face darkened, and only after a moment did he let out a cold snort. You'd better keep your word. Don't come crawling back at me later and disgust me. I couldn't be bothered to waste any more words on him. I turned around under the watchful eyes of the entire class, walked to the back of the classroom, and brought back the biggest black trash bag I could find. Then I went back to my seat and, one by one, threw in the gifts I had carefully chosen and poured countless hours into. Finally, I pulled out 99 thick sheets of stationery from the bottom drawer of my desk. They were the love letters I had written to him, none of which I'd even had the chance to give him. It was stained with all the desperate love and humble hopes of my girlhood. I threw that in too, all at once, into that black trash bag. Gu Qingyan's face instantly turned livid. He probably hadn't expected me to be this resolute. If this were the old me, wouldn't I have been crying and begging him to take it, then gone out of my way like some desperate doormat to buy him the newest model? Then, in the end, he would graciously and reluctantly accept all those gifts. But now, I just carried that heavy trash bag to the bin at the end of the hallway. Then I fished a lighter out of the bag, and with a click, I set those letters on fire. The blue flames licked at the yellowed paper, burning the humble, ridiculous love I'd held on to for the past 2 years to ash. Gu Qingyan's face darkened even further. He stared at the flames intently, turned on his heel in a rage, and left behind one last sentence before he went. Fine, Shinpanchi, you'd better not regret this. Of course I wouldn't regret it. I'd only be glad that I'd cut ties with trash in time. The crowd had dispersed when a coat, carrying a faint scent of mint, was draped over my shoulders. Lu Zimo stood beside me, looking at the pile of burnt paper ash, unable to hide the smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. Enough, Shinpanchi, for something like that. How much longer are you going to keep being upset? Since you were 8, you've been under my protection. When did it become anyone else's place to make you suffer? That pretty boy won't do. From now on, I'm the one who'll like you. I love the way you're so arrogant and bossy. it's irresistible. I was deeply moved, never expecting such a sincere confession to come from Lou Zimo, the school bully who looked down on everyone. Seeing that I hadn't agreed, he said with a proud, Sundara air, "You not liking me just means you've got bad eyesight. Anyway, once I found out you were going abroad, I turned in my own application too. I'm this outstanding, so I've got plenty of time to make you fall for me." I smiled, my eyes curving. Okay, we left side by side, but I could feel a gaze lingering on me the whole time. On the day I was about to go abroad, my parents packed my luggage for me, reminded me to be careful, and watched me get into the car. Just as the car was about to pull out of the villa gates, a figure suddenly dashed out and stopped in front of it. It was Gu Qingyan. He looked a little haggard, with dark circles under his eyes, but that air of condescending arrogance had not faded in the slightest. I rolled down the car window and looked at him coldly. "What do you want?" He was panting, his eyes bloodshot. Qingqing's condition suddenly got worse. The doctor said she's developed acute renal failure and needs a kidney transplant as soon as possible. I raised an eyebrow and said nothing, waiting for him to continue. Just as I thought, he took a deep breath and spoke in a tone that was almost condescending, as though he were doing her a favor. "Shinpanchi, I know you still love me. As long as you're willing to donate a kidney to Qingqing, I'll agree to be your boyfriend for a year." I felt like I had just heard the biggest joke in the world and couldn't help laughing. He probably thought he was making some huge sacrifice and compromise. After a pause, he added, "But only in name. During that time, we can't have any physical contact. In my past life, Gu Qingyan also asked me to donate a kidney to Chu Qingqing. Caught up in my love-struck haze, I agreed. After the kidney donation, my health went downhill. I had little energy, and I was constantly plagued by illness. Yet he still looked down on me in every way. Now that I've seen his true colors, I'd never be such a sucker again. I looked at the stunned expression on his face, and my smile widened. "Gu Qingyan," I said each word slowly and clearly, "I'd spend a few thousand yuan to hire a handsome, well-built male model I can touch, hold, and even sleep with that deadpan face of yours, and you've still got another woman in your heart, not even letting me touch you. Now you want one of my kidneys. I, Shinpanchi, am worth $1 billion. Do you think you deserve my kidney?" His face flushed the color of pig liver as he frowned. "Shinpanchi, don't push your luck. If you miss this chance, don't come bothering me again," I said coldly. "Gu Qingyan, you're the one who's been pestering me, your own woman. Why should I be the one to protect her? If you've got the nerve, go donate a kidney yourself." Gu Qingyan looked like he was holding back his temper, his face full of impatience. "Shinpanchi, even if you're jealous and throwing a tantrum, there has to be a limit. By then, I really won't pay any attention to you, so don't come crying to me like you always do." After saying that, he spoke again, as if giving in. "At worst, I'll be your boyfriend for 2 years. Qingqing is thoughtful and reasonable. As long as you donate a kidney to her, it's just borrowing 1 extra year. She'll definitely agree." I was so angry I actually laughed. Borrowing. Chu Qingqing and Gu Qingyan sure were something else. Borrowed 2 years worth of trash from me, ate my food and spent my money, and still had the nerve to accuse me of breaking them up. Just as I was about to speak, Lou Zimo arrived and kicked Gu Qingyan to the ground. Furious, he pointed at Gu Qingyan and cursed him out. "No mirror. At least you've got a bladder, right? What, is your face edged with gold? I've been looking at that face for 2 years, and for one of Ponchi's kidneys. What the hell do you think you are? Get the hell out of here." Lou Zimo stared coldly at Gu Qingyan, who lay on the ground. "Stop pestering Ponchi. We're about to go to the UK to study abroad," I added, enunciating each word. "From now on, let the bridge be the bridge and the road be the road. We have nothing to do with each other." Gu Qingyan scrambled up from the ground in a sorry state, his face full of disbelief. "Studying abroad? You're going to study abroad?" He stared at me hard, as if trying to catch any sign that I was lying. How could that be? Gu Qingyan didn't believe I would leave. In his mind, my life, Shinpanchi's life, revolved around him. Without him, I wouldn't even have the courage to go on living. "Shinpanchi, I know you're just going abroad for a trip. Are you trying to use this to play hard to get again? You're so pathetic. I really looked down on you." Gu Qingyan still refused to believe I was going abroad and kept mocking me. Lou Zimo had already lost patience with his nonsense and swung another punch at him. I quickly got out of the car and grabbed Lou Zimo. "Don't dirty your hands for garbage like him." I looked at Gu Qingyan and said calmly, "Whether it's family background, character, personality, or looks, what exactly do you have that can compare to Lou Zimo? You've met someone this outstanding. How unforgettable do you really think he still is?" Gu Qingyan took a pale step back. Lou Zimo struggled to hold back the curve of his lips, but in the end he couldn't. and he shoved Gu Qingyan aside with smug satisfaction. Out of the way, you good for nothing. Ponchi and I are going to miss our flight. After saying that, Lu Zimo opened the car door for me, and we got in together. The car started up, went around him, and sped off toward the airport. In the rearview mirror, Gu Qingyan's figure grew smaller and smaller. He stood there in a daze, like a clown abandoned by the whole world. Life in England for Lu Zimo and me quickly settled down. It wasn't until I stepped out of Gu Qingyan's shadow that I realized how vast and how wonderful the world truly was. We joined all kinds of fun clubs, surfed to our heart's content in the ocean, and carved down snowy mountains on skis. Once, we were lying side by side in the snow when he rolled over and pinned me in his arms, his dark eyes burning as he looked at me. Shinponchi, listen up, I fucking like you. Ever since the day you stole my lollipop when you were 8. I've liked you. I let it slide when you were blind enough to fall for that sickly weakling. Now that your eyes are finally open, it's my turn. From today on, you're mine. I'll be your man, and I'll be your shield. If anyone dares to wrong you again, I'll take them apart. I looked at the sincere, nervous eyes hidden beneath his arrogant facade and smiled as I nodded. His dark eyes lit up. He leaned in close and kissed me awkwardly and clumsily, with such force it was almost as if he meant to swallow me whole. We worked hard together, made steady progress together, and both landed offers from top universities. Just when I thought my life and Gu Qingyan's would never cross paths again, the domestic media suddenly blew up. A friend back home urgently sent me a video link. The moment I clicked it, my face darkened. It was Gu Qingyan. He actually posted a video online, publicly slandering me. In the video, he looked utterly haggard, his eyes red-rimmed, speaking to the camera in a voice full of anguish. I don't know why Ponchi hates me so much, or hates Qingqing. Qingqing's condition suddenly worsened because she was provoked and humiliated by Shinponchi at the hospital that day. She's now in critical condition, yet Shinponchi went abroad with another man to enjoy herself. Then the scene shifts to Chu Qingqing lying in a hospital bed, wearing an oxygen mask. She weakly sheds tears and says, in broken sobs, I just want to be with the person I love. Why is it so hard? Just because brother Qingyan and I are both orphans with no one to rely on. Does she think she can use her power to bully us? They were in on it together, twisting the truth and turning right into wrong. They cast themselves as a tragic pair of lovers bullied by a vicious rich girl, and I became the villainous woman who used her power to bully others and stood by while someone died. The video spread like wildfire and shot to the top of the trending charts. In no time, the internet was flooded with abuse directed at me. So rich people can do whatever they want, stealing a man and driving someone to death. What a piece of trash. My heart breaks for the campus heartthrob and his childhood sweetheart. What a beautiful love story, ruined by this Shinponchi. Qingqing's condition got worse because of Shinponchi. Shinponchi has to donate a kidney to her, dox her, and force her to come back. At Shin Group, is this how you raise your daughter? I'll hate you forever. Boycott all Shin Group products. Insults came flooding in from every direction. Because of the backlash this time, my family's stock price plunged. I looked at those vulgar, disgusting comments, and I was shaking with anger. I never expected Gu Qingyan to be shameless to this extent. For the sake of his true love, he didn't hesitate to twist the truth and throw me into the center of a public storm. I didn't respond right away to the barrage of criticism from the entire internet. I let the controversy continue to brew online, driving the heat around the incident to a boiling point. Gu Qingyan and Chu Qingqing became the victims everyone on the internet sympathized with, while I became the vicious supporting female character everyone was shouting at. Just when everyone thought I'd be too guilty to show my face, I went straight live. As soon as the livestream went live, millions of netizens flooded in. The bullet comments were packed with insults and curses. You still have the nerve to go live, why don't you just die? Shameless woman, you ruined Qingqing so badly. Apologize to Qingqing right now. Donate a kidney to her. Donate a kidney. Donate a kidney. Donate a kidney. In an instant, the comments were flooded with the words, donate a kidney. I ignored them and calmly pressed play while facing the camera. A clear recording played from the phone. Qingqing's condition suddenly worsened. The doctor said she developed acute renal failure and needs a kidney transplant as soon as possible. Shen Ponchi, I know you still love me. If you're willing to donate a kidney to Qingqing, I'll agree to be your boyfriend for 1 year, but only in name. During that time, there can be no physical contact of any kind. The recording finished playing. The live stream, which had been chaotic and in disarray just moments ago, instantly fell into complete silence. A few seconds later, the livestream comments exploded. The viewers who'd just been ready to tear me apart turned their guns on Gu Qingyan and Chu Qingqing, so he couldn't manipulate her, and now he's turning around to bite back. That's disgusting. Is this guy mentally ill or what? He won't even let anyone touch him. But he still wants a kidney, why doesn't he just go rob one? So, this guy has been guilt-tripping Shinponchi this whole time. Chu Qingqing's condition has nothing to do with Shinponchi at all. I faced the camera and said coldly, Gu Qingyan, I told you long ago that I don't love you anymore. Please stop using love as an excuse to guilt-trip and smear me. If you have time to play the victim online and guilt-trip me with your sob story, you'd be better off getting tested for a donor match yourself. After all, you love her that much, don't you? After the livestream ended, Gu Qingyan was slammed by the entire internet. His image as the campus heartthrob who was deeply in love collapsed overnight, and he became the universally reviled PUA gold digger. Backed into a corner, he made a tragic decision, both to rebuild his reputation by casting himself as a martyred hero, and to hold on to Chu Qingqing for good. He chose to donate one of his own kidneys. The surgery was a success. Gu Qingyan gave up one of his own kidneys to save Chu Qingqing's life, and in doing so, won back the sympathy of some netizens. And as for all that, I couldn't care less. 3 months later, classmates back home sent him a message. Once the golden boy everyone admired, Gu Qingyan, the brilliant but impoverished campus heartthrob, had flunked the college entrance exam. The kidney donation surgery made him miss the most crucial review period of the entire second semester of his senior year. Chu Qingqing was the same in the end. They only ended up at an ordinary local community college. Gu Qingyan didn't care in the slightest. Relying on the fact that he had been reborn, he firmly believed that academic credentials didn't matter, so he chose not to retake the exam. He thought he was holding the script for the future, and could make a comeback whenever he wanted. As for me, looking at the sweet photo of him and Chu Qingqing at the entrance of the college on my phone, it only felt like I was watching a joke. I'd like to see whether Gu Qingyan could still get what he wanted once I was out of the picture. Right now, I'm with Lu Zimo on the banks of the Seine in Paris, enjoying a carefree vacation, rich, beautiful, loved by someone who loves me, and with a bright future ahead. My life has only just begun. I'll never waste another minute or ounce of energy on a loser like Gu Qingyan again. Even though I deliberately tried not to pay attention, my friends back home would still occasionally bring me up to speed on what Gu Qingyan was up to. Gu Qingyan firmly believed that the good life he and Chu Qingqing had worked so hard for would begin with college life. He thought that without me constantly getting in the way, his love with Qingqing would only grow sweeter. But he forgot that back in high school, I used to keep slipping money to Gu Qingyan. With my money, Gu Qingyan was able to let Chu Qingqing live like a princess, surrounded by luxury, designer handbags, fine dining, all without batting an eye. Though the two of them were orphans, thanks to my being their personal cash cow, their lives were no worse than those of rich second-generation heirs. Now that I'm no longer supporting them, these two parasites who had grown used to a life of luxury are starting to feel out of place, and Chu Qingqing has even begun looking down on Gu Qingyan for being too shabby. What Chu Qingqing fell for was never the poor Gu Qingyan, but the so-called rising star I had dressed up with money in this life. Without me, Gu Qingyan may still have the inside track of rebirth, but without startup capital or connections, he was tied up at every turn. His so-called business secrets were nothing but empty talk without capital coming in. Worse still, with only one kidney, his health had taken a serious turn for the worse. He'd catch a cold and run a fever whenever the weather changed, and even staying up a little late would leave him dizzy and lightheaded. He simply couldn't work and push himself like a normal young man. His so-called prophecy was powerless before the harsh realities. To support his and Chu Qingqing's lives, he had no choice but to set aside the pride of a heaven-sent prodigy and take on the odd jobs he had once looked down on most, barely managing to keep the two of them afloat. At first, Chu Qingqing could still put on an act, but as time went on, her patience was worn away by day after day of poverty. Gu Qingyan hadn't failed to notice the changes in her, but he simply thought it was the normal bickering between young lovers. After all, a little arguing only made a relationship stronger. She began complaining that the rental apartment was too small, and that the clothes he bought weren't stylish enough. Then a black sedan started showing up frequently outside their residential complex. He knew the man in the car, Boss Wang, a 50-year-old nouveau riche with a greasy, ugly face. He had been pestering Chu Qingqing since high school. He chalked that unease up to his own temporary downfall and oversensitivity. He kept telling himself that Qingqing had suffered so much for his sake, that he couldn't doubt her, and he swore he would work even harder to give Chu Qingqing a good life. Until the day of Chu Qingqing's birthday, Gu Qingyan spent the whole day hauling bricks at a dust-choked construction site like a beast of burden. A stabbing pain kept flaring up from an old injury in his waist, but he gritted his teeth and pushed through it. With that hard-earned money, he booked the Western restaurant she had been talking about for ages, and bought her a necklace that wasn't expensive, but was beautifully made, carrying that little surprise in his heart. He arrived early and waited for her at the entrance to the neighborhood, but then he saw a black sedan take Chu Qingqing away. Gu Qingyan's heart sank abruptly, and, as if under some strange spell, he followed after them in the darkness. The black sedan rocked faintly in a steady rhythm, and Chu Qingqing's gasping breaths drifted from inside through the half-lowered window. Gu Qingyan saw Chu Qingqing, half-dressed, straddling the man, head tilted back, eyes heavy with seduction, her face flushed with desire. A wave of dizziness hit him, and his stomach churned violently, overwhelmed by sheer rage and humiliation. He lost all reason. Gu Qingyan immediately rushed over and punched the man in the face, then dragged Chu Qingqing out in disheveled clothes and slapped her hard several times. "You bitch, you ruined my life, and now you dare to betray me." The onlookers pointed and whispered at Chu Qingqing and Mr. Wang. Gu Qingyan was quickly dragged away by Mr. Wang's bodyguards and beaten up badly. A sharp, mocking look spread across Chu Qingqing's face. "So what if I'm with Mr. Wang? He can buy me Hermes, he can take me to the finest restaurants. Can you? Just look at you now, covered in sweat. How are you any different from a construction worker, beaten until his face was covered in blood?" Gu Qingyan's eyes were red as he roared at Chu Qingqing. "But I donated a kidney to you. Because of you, I've ruined my own body. If you hadn't insisted on playing the hero, I'd already be with Mr. Wang. He would have hired me the best doctors, given me the best medicine. I never would have had to go through surgery and suffer like this." She wrapped her arm around Mr. Wang, the very man she had once hated most, leaned against his shoulder, and spoke word by word. "Loser, let's break up. I love someone strong enough to give me a future, not a sickly weakling like you who can only make empty promises." Watching Chu Qingqing get into the car and drive off with Mr. Wang, Gu Qingyan couldn't make sense of it. No matter how hard he tried, he had been reborn, armed with the knowledge and experience of his past life, and with the advantage of knowing what was coming. So how did he still end up with nothing? He failed to keep his childhood sweetheart, and in the process, he even lost me, the fool who had eyes only for him. He remembered how attentively I had cared for him. If I had been there, I would have helped him up with a pang of pity, ordered my bodyguards to deal harshly with Mr. Wang and Chu Qingqing, and then taken him to the hospital to nurse him back to health instead of going back like a beaten dog to a tiny, ramshackle rental and waiting for the pain to pass. Maybe because he'd been hurt, Gu Qingyan started frantically looking for me. The pathetic little yes man. When he couldn't get through to me by phone, he went to my university from my previous life to look for me, and when he found out no such person existed, his face went pale. After the holiday started, he came to my house to look for me again, only to learn from the butler that I had really gone abroad to study. According to the butler, he knelt at my front door then and there, bowing his head over and over, saying he'd been wrong. In the end, my parents treated me like a homeless drifter and threw me out the front gate. Years later, Lu Zimo and I returned to China after completing our studies. I took over the family business, and my parents were free to travel the world. Lu Zimo also started his own tech company, and it took off in no time. At a business gathering, I unexpectedly saw Gu Qingyan again as an employee of a small company. He had come along with his boss to mingle and try to drum up some investment. He looked haggard and down on his luck, dressed in a cheap suit that had faded from too many washes. His hair was a mess, his beard scruffy, and none of the confident, radiant charm he had back in school remained. Many of the classmates there could no longer even recognize him. He sat alone in a corner, quietly drowning his sorrows in drink, his glassy eyes fixed on me as I shone brightly in the middle of the crowd, with Lu Zimo at my side. As the party was drawing to a close, he blocked my way. "Pongshi," he spoke in a hoarse voice, "I regret it. Over these years, I've finally come to realize that in this world, you're the only person who has ever truly cared about me. I never really forgot you. I've always loved you. It's just that I didn't have any money, and I didn't have the face to come find you." He rambled incoherently, trying to grab my hand. "Pongshi, give me one more chance, okay?" Watching him look so pathetic, I could only think how absurd it was. When I loved him so deeply, he humiliated me and called me a desperate loser who was always after him. Now that I don't love him anymore, he's the one begging me on his knees. "Mr. Gu," I said, holding up the engagement ring on my ring finger, "Zimo and I are getting married next month." Gu Qingyan's body jolted violently, as if struck by lightning, and his face turned as white as a sheet. He stared at us in dazed despair, his lips trembling, unable to say a word for a long time. After a long while, he let out a bitter, strained laugh and picked up the wine glass on the table. I was the one who missed my chance. I wish you a lifetime of happiness together. With trembling hands, he picked up a glass of wine and held it out to me. Let this one be on me. All I wanted was to finish this glass and put some distance between us, so I picked up my own glass and took a small sip, but the moment the alcohol hit my tongue, I knew something was off. A wave of intense dizziness hit me, and my vision began to blur. The last thing I saw was Gu Qingyan's twisted, deranged face. When I woke up in the soft bed of the hotel, Gu Qingyan was lying on top of me, trying to undo my clothes. He was actually trying to reenact the same trick from my past life, getting me drunk and pregnant. Ponchi, don't be scared. He looked at me with a mixture of passion and madness, his eyes burning with a warped possessiveness. As long as we get through tonight, you'll be pregnant with my child again. You'll marry me, and we can start over. He wanted to marry me again, the one who held the reins of the Shin group, so he could escape his current predicament and rise back to the top of his life. How disgusting. In your dreams. I glared at his disgusting face and lifted my foot to kick him. Drugged and weak, I was easily caught by the foot, my legs forced apart. My struggles were utterly powerless. Excited, he reached down to unbuckle his belt. I swear, Ponchi, this time, I'll only love you. I'll give you the best of everything in the world. Just then, the hotel room door was kicked open with a loud bang. Lu Zimo burst in with his bodyguards, and the moment he saw what was happening, his eyes turned bloodshot. He rushed over and started raining punches and kicks down on Gu Qingyan, who was lying on the floor. You bastard, I'll fucking kill you. Gu Qingyan was beaten so badly he couldn't fight back, lying on the ground covered in wounds, still mumbling over and over. Why is it that after being reborn, my life has turned into such a mess? Ponchi, I'll only ever love you in this life. Why can't you just look at me again? He suddenly seemed to remember something, struggled to his feet, and stared at me fixedly. You were reborn too, weren't you? Shinponchi, you were reborn too. I looked at his crazed expression, feeling perfectly calm inside. Yes, I was reborn. I spoke softly, my voice utterly calm. So yes, I remember it perfectly clearly. In my last life, I was 9 months pregnant, and I knelt at the place where your childhood sweetheart died, bowing my head over and over again. And I remember even more clearly that you let that cold, merciless truck crush me and my unborn child into a bloody pulp. Gu Qingyan's face went deathly pale in an instant. He waved his hands in panic, flustered and incoherent as he tried to defend himself. No, that's not it. It was an accident. You were crushed by that truck, not by me. I just didn't react in time. Hearing my words, Lu Zimo beat Gu Qingyan up again, even more viciously. Heartbroken, he tightened his grip on my hand and pulled me close into his arms, his voice hoarse. If I'd been braver in my past life, if I'd killed that bastard surnamed Gu sooner, if I'd snatched you back sooner, how could you have suffered like that? I leaned against his warm chest and shook my head. It's not your fault. It's all in the past now. Gu Qingyan watched the sweet intimacy between us, while I looked at the unhidden love and tenderness in Lu Zimo's eyes. His last trace of hope was completely shattered. He had lost. He was utterly defeated. He stumbled out of the hotel in a daze and dashed into the middle of the road like a madman. In the distance, a large truck was honking as it sped toward him. The blinding headlights illuminated his desperate face. Watching the truck draw closer and closer, he suddenly broke into a strange smile and murmured to himself, as long as I die, if I die, I can be reborn again. Next time I'll definitely have Ponchi, a healthy body, and a bright future. I never want to be Chu Ching Ching again. Holding on to that desperate, absurd hope, he spread his arms and rushed out. Bang! But this time, he didn't get to be reborn again. As for me, nestled in my lover's arms, I finally lived the happy, peaceful life that should have been mine all along. The end. That's all for the first story. Don't go anywhere, because the next one gets even better. In my previous life, when the apocalypse came, my best friend and roommate voted for me to go into the disaster zone to look for supplies. At the center of the disaster zone, I awakened a special power, the ability to control zombies with my protection. My best friend survived unscathed into the new era. On the day my best friend was dying, she clutched my hand, her eyes full of unwilling regret. If I'd known, I should have been the one to go find supplies. Why the hell did you get the power system and become the main character? In this life, my best friend was reborn. She stepped forward and said, I'm the reborn heroine. Everyone, hoard supplies with me. Her roommates all praised her for being brave, kind, and responsible, and she basked in the thrill of being the center of everyone's attention. Watching her lead everyone to max out their online loan accounts, I clapped and cheered with a smile while secretly sighing to myself, what a pity, this time, the apocalypse isn't coming. My college best friend told me she had been reborn. This world is a zombie apocalypse novel, and we're just nameless background NPCs in this world, but she's the Heroine, reborn with an ordinary person's script to tear through the apocalypse. She told us that 3 days later, a sudden sunshower would sweep through City A. 2 weeks later, the first low-fever mutant zombie would appear at our school. Soon after, the virus spread rapidly, bringing the entire city to its knees. At first, everyone in the dorm thought she'd been poisoned by some cheap takeout. Then she went and blurted out all of our secrets. Zhou Yuding, the man who's your father now is your stepfather. When you were little, he often laid hands on you, Chu Wanyue. Even though you're the school's pure and innocent goddess, you actually have 8 boyfriends, and you even have a sugar daddy. Privately, you're quite wild. Then she turned to me, Shenwei, your parents were made up, you're actually an orphan. 3 days later, I looked out at the blazing sun and the pedestrians holding umbrellas along the tree-lined avenue. The rest of them, stripped bare and humiliated, finally let go of their anger and embarrassment and chose to make peace with Xiao Anning. Her best friend sat on the lower bunk, looking smug. See, now do you believe me? The timid Zhou Yuding in the dormitory went pale. Then what do we do? I don't want to turn into a zombie. Chu Wanyue casually took a cigarette out of the drawer and lit up, raising an eyebrow. You say you're the heroine, so you must have a way to keep us alive until safety day, right? Of course, the first rule of the apocalypse. Stockpile supplies. Xiao Anning pulled out her phone. Anyway, nobody in this world really cares whether you live or die. This apocalypse is your chance, ordinary people, to turn the tables. There was a crazed glint in her eyes. First, find some excuse to ask your family for money, then drain every last loan app you can. Joey Anning was giving us orders. Zhou Yuding hesitated a little. We're students. Getting an online loan isn't exactly easy. Shenwei frowned. My family doesn't even care about me. I paid my own tuition. How am I supposed to get the money? What's hard about it? It's not like you have to pay it back anyway. Just go find the lenders who charge high interest and are willing to lend to students. And you, too. Why not ask your 8 boyfriends to chip in a little each? Wouldn't that cover it? Don't you still have a sugar daddy? Ask him for it. Xiao Anning looked displeased, then turned to me again. Her tone tentative. Shenwei, you don't have any objections, do you? I smiled and was fully in favor of her decision. No objections. I just lost my ID card, so I'll need to get a replacement first. It's the weekend today. I'll handle it first thing tomorrow morning. We still have more than 10 days, and if I rush it, it'll be done in a week. Zhou Ning let out a relieved breath and smiled with satisfaction. All right, for now we'll use the 3 of ours. Hurry up and get it done. If the zombies come, we won't be looking out for you. I nodded vigorously. Don't worry. But inside, I felt completely indifferent. Zhou Ning, I wonder if you'll find out that once you've stocked up on supplies, the apocalypse won't be coming. What are you supposed to do then? Too, in my previous life, a sudden sun shower drizzled on and off for 10 days. The first ultra-low temperature zombie appeared at our school. It spread through the entire school in no time, and the campus became a high-priority quarantine zone, with both people and zombies locked inside. Our dorm's food stock was almost gone, so Xiao Anning teamed up with Zhou Yuding and Chu Wanyu to vote me into going to the campus supermarket, the area hardest hit by zombie activity, to fetch supplies. I was an orphan, bullied since childhood, and only managed to get into college with the help of a student loan. I invented a backstory for myself as coming from an ordinary county town family, and Xiao Anning became my one and only friend. I cherish this friendship deeply, so whenever Xiao Anning asks me to do something, I usually go along with it. Xiao Anning was used to having me under her thumb, too. In a crisis, she didn't even hesitate. Shenwei, didn't you say I was your best friend? This is exactly when I need you the most. Shenwei, you go. Zhou Yuding, all red-eyed and fragile, pointed at me. Your PE scores are always better than mine. You should be the one to go this time. She was spouting her twisted logic that the weak are always in the right, while echoing Xiao Anning's call. Chu Wanyue clutched the last bag of biscuits tightly. I'm not going. If I really have nothing to eat, I'll go to the boys' dorm across the way. There are so many simps there. Someone will give me food. The 3 of them shoved me out the door. After the door was locked, Xiao Anning's cold voice came from behind the iron gate. Shenwei, if you can't bring the supplies back, don't come in. Keeping you around is useless. During the day, the zombies all stayed near the supermarket by the lake, where it was cooler. At night, the zombies became much more active, and cries of anguish would occasionally echo through the hallway. Staying out here would only mean certain death. I had no choice but to make a run for the supermarket. I swam across the lake to the back entrance of the supermarket, where I encountered the first low-temperature zombie, the source of all zombie infections. After I pierced his forehead with the pointed end of a metal broom, I obtained a charm system and took control of 20 zombies nearby. With this system, I secured supplies and became The last one standing in the struggle for survival in the apocalypse, Chu-yun, the object of Xiao Anning's affection, lived in dormitory building No. 2 across the way. His roommate called out to Xiao Anning through the window for help, asking us to save him and Chu-yun. Xiao Anning ignored the hundreds of zombies gathered downstairs and forced me to go across and save someone. I refused, saying the zombies had already evolved intelligence and might disguise themselves as someone we knew to trick us into walking to our deaths. A few days later, Chu-yun's roommate vanished by the dormitory window, and Building 2 was completely overrun. After being sad for a few days, Xiao Anning became incredibly understanding. She apologized to me, saying she shouldn't have let her emotions get the better of her, and that I was the most important person in her life. After that, we escaped from the school and made it back to the base. As my loved ones and close friends, they enjoyed delicacies long gone from the outside world and a peaceful life at the base. Meanwhile, I was on the front lines, fighting the zombies non-stop, forcing down mutated flesh that made me nauseous and left my body convulsing, all to strengthen my abilities. I lived rough, slept under the open sky, and wore myself out to the bone, covered in scars and calluses. They were fed and pampered until they were plump and soft, with smooth, delicate skin. In the end, Chu Wanyu seduced my deputy, tried to seize power, and after failing, fled to another base to latch onto a male superhuman. During the power struggle, Zhou Yuding dragged me in as a human shield to take the blows, and was bitten to death by my zombie bodyguard. Xiao Anning stood by and watched coldly. After I won the day, bloodied all over, she chose to follow me and enjoy the good life. We protected her until she made it to the new world, and in the end, we gave her half of our wealth and resources. On the day she was dying, she asked me to meet her at the old site of the school. Holding my hand, she looked at me with utter resentment. If I'd known, I should have been the one to go find the supplies. Why should you get the system and become the main character? If I had gotten the system, Chu-yun wouldn't have died because you stood by and did nothing. I froze in place all along. She was the selfish one, the one who looked on coldly, the one who bullied others with her power. A friendship made me protect her for a lifetime, yet she hated me so much. How utterly ridiculous. Fine then, now that I've been given a second chance at life, I'll let her be the heroine this time. I just worry she won't live to see the apocalypse. 3. Shenwei, you're doing our group assignment and morning reading class today. Once she had money, Zhou Yuding started bossing me around with a condescending attitude. Chu Wanyu glanced at me. Anyway, you're broke right now and can't stock up on supplies, so it's only normal for you to help us out with some chores. I've contacted an underground warehouse. I'm going to rent it today. When the zombies come and it's no longer safe to live on the surface, we can move in there. The three of us will split up to buy supplies. Shenwei, you stay at the school and cover for us, so I wouldn't find out where the underground storage was, and to keep the teachers at school from noticing anything strange about them. Xiao Anning assigned me to the dorm to help cover for what they were doing. I put on a grateful, almost flattered look and took their homework over proactively. Sure, helping out is fine. After all, you've all been taking such good care of me. I'd feel bad not doing something for everyone. If they wouldn't let me stockpile supplies, I'd actually be thrilled. Seeing that I showed no sign of resistance or displeasure, Xiao Anning finally smiled in relief. After watching Xiao Anning and the others leave, I sat down in the chair, casually popped open a bottle of Coke, and took out my earbuds. Before long, I heard the three of them start talking. Anning, are we really just going to leave Shenwei in the dorm? Will she go snitch to the teacher? Taking advantage of the daily campus errands I ran for Xiao Anning, I used half a year's scholarship money to buy hidden software and install it on her phone. Xiao Anning replied impatiently, why are you so timid, Zhou Yuding? Besides, in your last life, she left you in the zombie horde and watched with her own eyes as the zombies gnawed you down to nothing but a skull. And you, Chu Wanyu, last time, it wasn't easy for you to have a male ability user willing to protect you. For her own survival, she took the initiative to sleep with him and got you kicked out of the base. If you still want to sell your body for stale steamed buns like you did in your last life, then go back. The other two immediately fell silent. You two, hurry up and buy supplies. Once you've got them, take everything to the warehouse. When evening self-study is over, we'll go back to the dorm and, while Shenwei is away, sneakily move our clothes and bedding out bit by bit. Remember, don't let her find out where the warehouse is, and don't let her catch on that we're not taking her with us. Someone this selfish and treacherous, who betrays her friends for personal gain, deserves to be left at the school as zombie chow. Zhou Anning had already made up her mind. There was no way she was taking me underground. Whether I could get a replacement ID within a week was still up in the air. if I didn't have any money, I'd be nothing but dead weight. Jo Anning was convinced this rebirth had given her her own chosen protagonist moment, and she had already planned to lock me in the dorm when the zombies came, then go to the lake herself to get the system. After all, I was the one who got the system and awakened my ability in my last life. The sooner I died at school, the more at ease she'd be, of course, if I could take out a loan before dying and give her a bit more to stock up on supplies. That'd be even better. After learning how miserable they'd been in their previous lives, Zhou Yuding and Chu Huanyue were even more determined to cut ties with me. The three of them parted ways at the school gate, watching the red dot on my phone screen, Xiao Anning's location, moved back into the dorm area and stopped by building 2 next door. I laughed, I knew it. Xiao Anning would definitely come back to find her dear brother, Chu Yun, the campus heartthrob for in my previous life, when she begged for help in Chu Yun's dorm room. She already blushed and argued with me, Xiaowei, as long as I save Chu Yun, he'll definitely fall in love with me and be with me. Back then, I tried to talk sense into her. We can barely protect ourselves, how are we supposed to save him? And what if it's a zombie pretending to be Chu Yun? She roared back at me, impossible, why would a zombie know I'd save him? Only Chu Yun would know, he must have feelings for me too, which is why he asked me for help first. Shenwei, do you like him? 2. Are you afraid that once he's with us, he'll fall for me, so you won't help me save him? Stop daydreaming, someone like you, now a monster that can control zombies, what makes you think you're worthy of him? After I firmly opposed going to save Chu Yun, Xiao Anning chose to give me the silent treatment, but in the end, to survive, she still chose to make up with me now that she's been reborn. How could she possibly give up the chance to be with Chu Yun and live happily ever after? Back then, she spent her whole life hating me for Chu Yun. This time around, as her best friend, I will support every choice she makes. My fingers tapped as I dialed Xiao Anning's number. When the call connected, I said, Anning, do you want to tell Chu Yun about the apocalypse? If you do him this favor, he'll definitely fall for you. Still hesitating downstairs, Xiao Anning broke into a smile. You think so too? You think he'll be touched? I kept encouraging her. Of course, you're beautiful and generous. And so kind. At last week's sports meet, I could tell Chu Yun looked at you differently. He definitely has a good impression of you. Xiao Anning hesitated, but will Zhou Yuding and Chu Huanyue agree to let me take Chu Yun to the underground storage room? I pretended not to realize I'd be left behind and gave her some advice. It's fine, make plans with Chu Yun first, and before the end of the world comes, bring him over. Chu Yun is tall and strong, even if the two of them try to stop us, they definitely won't be able to stop the three of us. You've got the warehouse key too. If they absolutely won't agree, then just don't bring them. My words hit her right where it mattered most. Xiaowei, you're the one who cares about me most. You're my best friend. A whole string of bestie stickers came flying over. I looked out the window and saw Xiao Anning standing downstairs by the dorm across the way, grinning from ear to ear. I couldn't help feeling bad for Zhou Yuding and Chu Huanyue. Actually, none of us in the dorm really mattered to Xiao Anning. Zhou Yuding had no money or power. Once her wallet was drained, she'd be useless, even more so in the apocalypse. Chu Huanyue was a formidable rival, and she was beautiful. In her past life, she had even won over an awakened ability user. I couldn't compete with her, and I was also afraid Chu Yun would be lured away. I was just a sycophant. She didn't care, only Chu Yun was truly her most important gauge, and she herself could still awaken an ability. She thought that since I'd been able to support the three of them in my previous life with my ability, taking care of just Chu Yun would definitely be easy for her too. Chu Yun would also grow dependent on her because of her protection. She never once considered how much I had sacrificed to protect them, and now that she's heading off to a beautiful end-of-the-world finale, with both love and status in hand, all I can do is offer my blessings. Bless her for bringing this on herself. She has no one to blame but herself. 5. Somehow, Xiao Anning talked Chu Yun into trusting her. A few days later, Xiao Anning had managed to get another sum of money. She gave up that tiny underground storeroom and moved with Chu Yun into an abandoned underground warehouse. I listened to the conversation through my earphones. Ning, thank goodness I have you, otherwise, when the apocalypse comes, I wouldn't even know what to do. Chu Yun's voice was unusually gentle. Xiao Anning melted instantly and said shyly, brother Chu Yun, a world without you is the real apocalypse to me. Don't worry, I'll protect you. What about your roommates, though? Chu Yun asked. That bunch of idiots can't even compare to you. Once they've spent all their money, they'll be useless. By then, when the zombies surround the city, they'll probably just become zombie food. Brother Chu Yun, don't worry, I've quietly changed all the supply delivery points to here. They won't find out. By then, this place will be our Little paradise, just for the two of us. A hint of cunning crept into Chuyun's tone. Really? Then that's wonderful. Seizing the moment, Xiao Anning said coquettishly, then, does that mean you can like me now? What silly things are you saying? Chuyun chuckled softly, his tone tinged with flirtation. If I didn't like you, why would I believe something like a zombie siege and come down here with you? Brother Chuyun, you wouldn't lie to me, would you? Baby, what more do you want me to do to prove it? After a while of mushy flirting, the headphones picked up the rustle of clothes and some suggestive, breathy gasps to spare my ears from a workplace injury. I yanked off the headphones and felt a wave of nausea. About half an hour later, Xiao Anning sent me a message. It was a bed photo of her and Chuyun asleep together. Their clothes were in disarray, and Xiao Anning deliberately showed off the little hickey on her neck, her eyes full of smugness and triumph. Shenwei, you were right, Chuyun does like me. I was the one being ridiculous back then, even worrying that you'd steal him from me. How could he ever be interested in someone like you, a no-name bargain bin girl with no parents and nothing going for her looks? Looking at that nauseating photo, I was a mix of emotions. Xiao Anning really was an idiot. Someone like Chuyun, who dated 8 people in a month, was never going to follow her to that warehouse just because of a few words. I told her from the start that Chuyun was no good. The zombie outbreak started with Building No. 2 out of dozens of dorm buildings. Only Building No. 2 was completely wiped out. She never once stopped to wonder why in my previous life. Why was I so out of my mind that I insisted on saving someone so selfish and cruel, so stupid and vile, and so hopelessly love-struck? But that doesn't really have anything to do with me anymore. I replied to Xiao Anning, that's great, Anning, I'm really happy for you as your friend that you and Chuyun can be together. Then I glanced at the time on my phone. 19:30. Time to head to evening self-study. In a few more days, this sun shower will stop, then everything will be back to normal. Let Xiao Anning be smug for a few days. Then I still need to graduate with a scholarship, as one of the top 10 outstanding students. 6. After evening self-study, I went back to the dorm. All 3 of them were back. Xiao Anning's face was flushed, her expression brimming with excitement, and even the shirt she had worn out this morning was now all wrinkled. The other 2 spots were empty too. The snacks and drinks on the table were gone, and there was less and less bedding left on the beds. I guess they'd moved most of it over in the past few days while I was studying. Shenwei, starting tomorrow, we won't be coming back at night. It's too much trouble running back and forth every day. Yeah, the warehouse and Ning rented is such a mess. If we don't clean it up soon, we won't have room for the stuff we bought when it arrives. Zhou Yuding and Chu Wanyue were the first to speak up. They'd been running around outside every day and were completely worn out. For the past few days, the sun showers had been non-stop, and the flu had started to spread. The news urged everyone to wear a mask when going out whenever possible, use serving chopsticks at group meals, and stay away from crowded places. Rumors about the apocalypse had started circulating online, but most people didn't take it seriously. Global warming, weird weather, what haven't they seen before? As for the apocalypse and all that, they just treated it like a joke. Zhou Yuding and Chu Wanyue, however, only got busier and busier. They had completely believed what Xiao Anning said every day. The moment they opened their eyes, they were stockpiling supplies, skipping class so often they'd lost all sense of time and place. The counselor tried to call them in for a talk, but they brushed it off too. Fed up, the counselor threatened to call their parents. I've really never seen a university threatened to call a student's parents before. Zhou and Chu both said they didn't care. We're heading into the apocalypse anyway, what the hell do parents matter? So I'm the only one staying in the dorm. I pretended to have a headache. What if we get caught during a dorm inspection? Xiao Anning frowned. Figure it out yourself. It's been so many days, and you still haven't gotten your ID reissued. You don't have any money either. Surely you can't expect to contribute nothing and do nothing. If we really can't keep it hidden, then forget it. In 3 days the apocalypse is coming anyway. The school's warnings will mean jack shit. By then they'll all be begging us for supplies and watching our every move. After winning over Chuyun, the look in Xiao Anning's eyes turned even more frantic. Then she added to Zhou Chu and the others, I'm going to ask my cousin for some money these next couple of days and stock up on a batch of medicine as fast as I can. You two start clearing things out in the warehouse. Hearing that Xiao Anning had gone to get money, Zhou and Chu both felt relieved. Over the past 2 days, each of them had borrowed another 100,000 yuan. Claiming to be pregnant, Chu Wanyue also got 5,000 yuan from each of her boyfriends, and 50,000 yuan from her sugar daddy, saying she needed to go to the hospital. Xiao Anning hadn't shown up at the warehouse all day today, and they were starting to panic. The supplies they ordered online were all registered under her name and phone number if Xiao Anning ran away. They couldn't even imagine how they'd get by in the days ahead. They still didn't know that Xiao Anning had already moved everything into her own cozy little nest. I had no choice but to give in. Alright, I'll figure something out then. By the way, I'll bring your instant noodles, bread, and the like over for you tomorrow first. For the next couple of days, just eat at the cafeteria. Chu Wanyue came over and took away all the food and drinks from my locker, along with my padded coat and other cold weather gear. She left me only a blanket to sleep with at night. I didn't have much stuff to begin with. One suitcase was enough. Zhou Yuding looked utterly disgusted. What a loser. He doesn't have anything. She had completely forgotten that she'd paid her tuition with student loans, as if the loan money were actually her own. We'll see if she can still be that smug when repayment comes due next month. Looking at the pitiful supplies in the box, Chu Wanting suddenly thought of something. By the way, and Ning, haven't the supplies we bought arrived yet? Xiao Anning's gaze flickered for a moment. Guiltily, she glanced at me and started making up an excuse. Hasn't the rain been getting heavier lately? What we bought was shipped by logistics, so it's normal for it to be delayed on the road. I called this afternoon, and they said it should arrive in the next couple of days. She didn't dare tell them that the stuff had arrived today, and was all piled up in the sweet little underground storage room she shared with Chu Yun. The two of them believed her. They had no idea Xiao Anning was treating them like fools. 6. The next day, Xiao, Zhou, and Chu left the dorm early, leaving behind only the bare wooden beds and a table covered in trash. The sun shower stopped, and then a fierce wind started to blow. Dust swirled through the howling wind, and the city grew eerily dark. It looked almost like the end of the world. Online rumors were getting more and more outlandish, with everyone wondering if the end of the world had come. There were more and more SWAT patrol vehicles, and every intersection outside the school had officers in tactical gear standing guard. Several large trees at the school had been blown down, blocking the road to class. Someone took a photo and posted it on their Moments. The angle was so odd it looked like a primeval jungle after a disaster. In the class group chat, a notice announcing classes were cancelled thrilled Xiao, Zhou, and Chu. In the dorm group chat, they mocked the idiots on their Moments running across the playground against the wind while bragging about how smart they'd been. Zhou Yuding, if I'd known sooner, I would have borrowed money from every relative around me. Now my mom's in the family group chat accusing me of skipping class, and I'm just cursing her out in return. If I hadn't schemed to seduce my stepfather and helped her get those photos to keep this second marriage husband in line, would she be living such an easy life today? That old bastard too. I told him to divorce my mom, and I'd marry him after graduation, but he actually refused because he couldn't bear to split the money. Once I'm out, the first thing I'll do is kill them both. The puffed-up Zhou Yuding had gone into self-destruct mode, and I nearly dropped the beef balls from the instant hot pot in my mouth. What's that supposed to be? My old sugar daddy is the real cheapskate. To save on transfer fees, he insisted on using his 80-year-old mother-in-law's phone to send me the money. Now his wife has found out, and they're fighting at home. Doesn't matter, though, he can't hit me anyway. Hee. The two of them kept spamming the group chat, then tagged me. Shenwei, the wind is way too strong right now, just stay at school, and once the rain lets up a bit, we'll come pick you up. Yeah, Shenwei, I saw the school supermarket is closed too. Hang in there for the next couple of days. I looked at the self-heating hot pot in my hands. They probably didn't know that before the supermarket closed, the campus management handed out 3 days' worth of rations to each dorm, based on 4 people per room, and I was living in the luxury single room I have now, enjoying all the supplies meant for the entire dorm. I replied in the group chat, it's fine, I grabbed a few steamed buns from the cafeteria before it closed this morning, so I'll be okay for now. I casually snapped a photo of the steamed bun my upstairs neighbors had turned their noses up at and tossed to me today. Crushed in the supply crate in the compound, the bun had gone all wrinkly and looked pretty sad. After seeing the photo, Zhou Yuding sent a voice message, laughing brightly. Shenwei, that's just too miserable. Poor you, we're eating fried chicken over here. A photo was posted in the group chat. In the dim basement, 2 people were lying on a simple sofa, eating fried chicken, but in the photo, I noticed that behind them, through the crack in the dim doorway, a pair of shoes was peeking out. I smiled to myself. Idiot, when Xiao Anning first rented this warehouse, she only put down a deposit. Now she and Chu Yun are fooling around down in the basement warehouse every day. How could she possibly care about them since the warehouse owner never received the remaining rent? He had no choice but to send someone to change the lock. It was already dark underground, and with the wind howling, the person who came to lock the door never even noticed anyone was inside. The two of them were locked up like that. I did the math on the food they'd brought along. At this rate, It wouldn't last 3 days in the group chat. I asked, is it still safe for Anning to go to her cousin's place, with such a strong wind? Can she even make it back? When I brought up Xiao Anning, Zhou Chu and the other person only then remembered the supplies issue, and they tagged Xiao Anning in the group chat in dissatisfaction. Zhou Yuding, Anning, when will the supplies arrive? The zombie day is the day after tomorrow. Chu Wanyue, yeah. Didn't you say the delivery was already on the way? Why still nothing? You didn't pocket it for yourself, did you? Although it was windy today, it was still possible to go out if necessary. Xiao Anning was worried I'd sell her out, and followed the clues to find her. I only came out to calm everyone down. The supplies have already arrived at the station. The wind is too strong right now, so deliveries are running slow. Please be patient a little longer. It'll be here soon. If I'd known you were going to doubt me this much, I never should have told you about the apocalypse in the first place. Besides, I've got the advantage of knowing how everything plays out, so in the apocalypse, teaming up with me makes you a hot commodity. Zhou Chu and the other person probably realized they'd still have to rely on Xiao Anning for spoilers about what comes after the apocalypse, and immediately softened. Anning, we're just a little anxious too. Be careful on your way to your cousin's place, and come back early. Okay. After I brushed them off with a few perfunctory replies, I exited the chat window. Outside the window, it was pitch black. The phone showed 1:00 p.m. I dug out my CET6 English dictionary. Good thing there was that little lamp Xiao Anning and the others had thrown away. Otherwise, the CET6 exam in a month would have been ruined. 7. Another night had passed. Last night the wind held all night, and the campus confession wall was flooded with insults. Damn, that freak wind blew all night. And my head is still buzzing. My idiot roommate insisted on opening the window for fresh air, and when I got up this morning, all the underwear I'd hung out to dry was gone. My phone was blown up by Zhou Yuding because she skipped class. The counselor rejected the need-based scholarship application she had submitted half a month earlier. Yesterday, she got into a huge argument with the counselor in the class group chat. She sent a voice message mocking him. You're just a counselor, don't get so full of yourself. You're trying to threaten me over a scholarship worth only a few thousand yuan. Someone as stupid as you wouldn't even deserve to be zombie food. The apocalypse is basically here. When the time comes, don't come begging me to save you losers. Then I left the group, deleted them as friends, and blocked them. I glanced at the dorm group chat at 11 p.m. last night. Zhou Yuding and Chu Wanyue completely lost it and started lashing out. Xiao Anning, why won't you answer my call? Where the hell did you run off to with the supplies? Damn it, you even blocked me. You bitch, don't let me find you, or you're dead. Finally, I tapped on Zhou Yuding's voice message. Shenwei, did the school hand out supplies? Hurry up and bring ours over. Damn it, who locked the door? Shenwei, have you no shame? Never seen food before or something? You're hogging supplies meant for 4 people all by yourself. You broke, useless loser. Get your stuff over here right now. The voice message shifted from furious threats at the start to begging by the end. Shenwei, please, come save us. We've run out of food. Please, my phone's about to die too. I'll tell you, we're in the north side of the city. After that, there was no more news. Yeah, the morning news said several utility poles were blown over in the north side of the city. The power's out now. The power banks they'd stockpiled were all with Xiao Anning at 10 a.m. Xiao Anning replied in the group chat, idiot, serves you right. And then left the chat. Half an hour later, I pretended to be anxious and sent a flurry of messages in the group chat. What happened? I just woke up. When are you coming to pick me up? The wind's really howling, the sky is pitch black, and I'm so scared. Woo, you wouldn't all be abandoning me too, would you? After finishing a string of tasks, I calmly pulled out my vocabulary notebook. I got so carried away memorizing that I lost all sense of the world around me. That afternoon, the dorm supervisor came by for a room check, remembering that if you can't hide it, might as well own up. Principal Xiao Anning taught me. I told the dorm supervisor. They went out to hide from the zombie apocalypse. The dorm supervisor and the counselor looked at me like I was an idiot. It's just a damn typhoon. How did it turn into a zombie siege? The counselor was getting anxious. Shenwei, stop making stuff up. In this typhoon, where exactly did they go? I answered sincerely. They really went to hide from the zombies. After nearly half an hour of questioning, they finally believed me. The counselor was so stressed out that he lost it and swore, completely unprofessional. Damn it, are they idiots or what? Then he asked me, where did they go to hide? Give me the address. I shook my head. I don't know, they didn't tell me. They said they'd come get me when the time came. The dean of the branch campus, who just rushed over, blew up too. Damn it, are they trying to get me on the news? My title, in any scenario. I never got a concrete safehouse address, whether it was Zhou Chu's underground storage room or Qiao Anning's factory building. To an outsider, I looked like the total sucker, handing over all the supplies, only to be left behind in the dorm. The counselor checked my phone records and couldn't find a single flaw. Calling and messaging all three of them got no response. That hidden monitoring software wouldn't be detected without solid software expertise and a thorough inspection. They came back empty-handed, and before leaving, they told me to let them know if there were any updates. I nodded, indicating that I would notify them at once. I just didn't know whether this news was good or bad. 8. The dormitory fell quiet again. I opened the monitoring software. The whining and moaning that had started early this morning finally came to an end. I felt a little down. They were so uninhibited. Who knew whether Qiao Anning had stocked up on enough little umbrellas? If not, then Qiao Anning was discussing the conversation in the group chat with Chu Yun, that little hussy Zhou Yuding, trying to seduce her stepfather. Who would have thought she was fooling people with that timid little act? And she even had the nerve to say she'd make me dead meat. Qiao Anning secretly felt relieved. Good thing she wasn't with them, otherwise Zhou Yuding and Chu Wanyue would be teaming up to fight her over a man. Brother Chu Yun, the wind outside is already at level 11, and it's still perfectly safe here. You really found a great place. They're about to go hungry. While we're still here enjoying a feast. Qiao Anning leaned into Chu Yun's arms, tracing little circles on Chu Yun's chest with her finger. Chu Yun didn't sound in very good shape. His voice was weak and hollow, but he was still trying hard to keep that breathy, bubbly tone. Really, thanks to you, baby, for telling me ahead of time and preparing so many supplies. You're the most amazing one, baby. I almost gagged listening to that, and the free self-heating hot pot in my hands didn't even look appetizing anymore. By the way, babe, where exactly is that charm system you mentioned? Over the past few days, Qiao Anning had been completely wrapped around Chu Yun's finger, and had long since told her everything that had happened in her previous life. But in her version of events, she was the one who had gained supernatural powers and saved everyone. Qiao Anning's voice suddenly turned a little hesitant. Brother Chu Yun, why are you asking about that? She wasn't so blinded by love that she'd hand over even the power to decide everything to Chu Yun as if he'd been doubted. Chu Yun's tone turned a little aggrieved. Baby, after all this between us, you still don't trust me. It's so dangerous out there right now. When you go to get the special ability later, I was just thinking I could keep watch for you, and yet you're protecting me. He sighed. Since you don't trust me, I'd better go back. All the supplies here were stockpiled by you, and I'm completely useless. I'd feel too ashamed to keep living off you. This was a classic reversal tactic, and it instantly flustered Qiao Anning. Brother Chu Yun, what are you talking about? I stocked up on all these supplies for you. I'll tell you where the ability is. Okay, the ability is by the lake behind the school supermarket. Chu Yun got the answer he wanted and let out a soft scoff. Heh. Qiao Anning snatched her hand back from Chu Yun's chest as if shocked. Brother Chu Yun, why has your body suddenly become so cold? So, Chu Yun said, his voice turning deep and icy, in my last life, you were the one who killed me and stole my power, weren't you? 9. By the time we rescued Qiao Anning, there wasn't a single patch of unbroken skin left on her body. After that day, Chu Yun kept Qiao Anning on a tight leash, as if she were a dog. Every day, he only gave her one steamed bun, and even whether she could have water depended on Chu Yun's mood. Chu Yun often slept during the day, then got up at night to fool around with Qiao Anning. He threw away the little condoms Qiao Anning had stocked up, wanting to get her pregnant. Anning, you like me so much, how about giving me a little zombie baby? Chu Yun's face had already begun to change, his complexion turning dark and ashen. He gripped Qiao Anning by the throat and breathed cold air into her ear. That way, once I eat it, I'll evolve even faster, and become the ruler of this zombie world. Looking at Chu Yun, whose body had become wrinkled and grotesque, Qiao Anning couldn't help but gag. Chu Yun was infuriated by her reaction. He lashed Qiao Anning with a rope while having sex with her. Things grew increasingly brutal. All he wanted was an embryo with mutated anti-rejection and zombie genes. He couldn't care less whether Qiao Anning lived or died. Qiao Anning messaged me while he was resting during the day. Where are you? Hurry up and come save me. Chu Yun is a zombie. Come save me. I was watching a grammar video when I replied, how could that be? And Ning, didn't you say the zombies were at the school? You're outside, so you'll definitely be fine. That's your favorite senior. Chu Yun, you must be too anxious and scared. You're hallucinating. She threatened me. Shenwei, you idiot. If you don't come save me, I won't care what happens when the zombies reach the city. You know it. I'm the heroine. Without me, none of you would survive. I casually snapped a photo of a newly opened self-heating hot pot. I'd get sick of self-heating hot pot in no time. You all probably eat better than I do, right? She lost it. Why do you still have food? I didn't reply. I just took a photo of the supplies the school had handed out. No idea. The school sends us lots of food every day. Xiao Anning suddenly realized that if the zombies hadn't broken out at school, they were very likely already right beside her. She grew even more frantic. Hurry and come save me, and take me back to school. Shenwei, we're best friends. How can you bear to let me get beaten and go hungry while I'm stuck with a monster? I tried to reason with her. But Anning, you were the one who insisted on being with Senior Chu Yun. You can't stop loving him just because he's turned into a monster. You have to win him over with love and warm him with your care. I believe you two will definitely be happy. Joanna was on the verge of despair. Shenwei, we can talk about the rest later. This is my location. Come save me first. After sending that message, I waited a long while, but never got her location. Then Chu Yun's sinister voice came through the headphones. Joanna, didn't you say you liked me? So why are you trying to run? Joanna's voice was trembling, fear overwhelming her. Don't come any closer, you monster. Stay away from me. Ah, stop hitting me, please. Ah, I told you to send the message. Just you wait. Once I've mutated, I'll turn you into a zombie first. By then, even if I told you to lick my shoes, you'd do it with pleasure. The sound of whipping and Xiao Anning's screams rang out through the earpiece. I checked the time. Tomorrow would be the day Chu Yun completely lost control and transformed. After a brief silence, I sent the location of the red dot to a newly added friend. Tonight, everything goes back to 0. 10 A week later, Zhou Yuding and Chu Wanyue were rescued. Zhou Yuding lost one foot, and Chu Wanyue had a chunk of flesh torn from her face. After their supplies ran out, the two of them started drinking urine, and eventually even began biting at each other. Not zombies, but worse than zombies. Before they'd even fully recovered in the hospital, the predatory online lenders came after them. She frantically called everyone around her to chase the debt for their second loan. The two of them chose a nude loan, and the naked photos of them holding their ID cards quickly spread all over the internet. Zhou Yuding dropped out of school and went back to compete with her biological mother for favor. Chu Wanyue was found at school by her benefactor's wife, who caused a huge scene, making it incredibly embarrassing. Their whole lives were probably ruined just like that. As for Xiao Anning, she was locked away in a hidden laboratory. The latest examination showed that she was pregnant. Zombie no. 1. Chu Yun's child. Another 2 months passed. Behind the thick tempered glass wall, Xiao Anning pounded on the glass and screamed at me at the top of her lungs. Shenwei, you bitch, you have your memories too, don't you? You knew he was the source of the infection, and you still sent me there to die. I smiled faintly, my tone flat. Xiao Anning, I told you in my last life not to go and save Chu Yun. You didn't believe me and hated me for an entire lifetime. Well, now you've gotten exactly what you wanted. In my past life, I encountered the first infected case by the lake. This man was Chu Yun, the object of Xiao Anning's affection. Unlike the other zombies, Chu Yun wasn't mindless. He only roared and bit. He retained human intelligence. After all, he was the very first zombie king back then. His skull hadn't fully hardened yet, so I drove the broom in from behind. As the pointed tip pierced through his eye, a jade green crystal fell out. The moment I touched the crystal, I absorbed its power. Xiao Anning never knew that so-called charm powers were nothing more than lower-level zombies submitting to higher-level ones. I was infected the day they shoved me out to look for supplies. I just don't eat people, I only eat the foul, disgusting energy cores in zombies' heads. The remaining energy in Chu Yun was absorbed by his roommate, and he became smarter. He saw me, so he disguised himself as Chu Yun and lured Xiao Anning at the window. As for Chu Yun, the original zombie king, he was instantly blown away right at the start. After being reborn, having a bit of memory isn't all that strange. You'd better not get cocky. I'm pregnant with Chu Yun's child now, for the sake of evolution. He'll definitely come save me. The zombies have the city under siege out there now. This isn't exactly easy on you either. Ha 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 ha. Xiao Anning laughed wildly. I sighed, pulled out my phone, and handed it to her. 2 months ago, Typhoon Scorpion, a Category 12 super typhoon, passed through the area, and City A has now fully completed its post-disaster recovery and reconstruction. The trending searches were all about post-typhoon reconstruction, not a single mention of zombies. Xiao Anning's face twisted in terror, her voice trembling. No, this can't be possible. In my last life, the city was clearly surrounded by zombies. The lab director beside her, dressed in a special medical uniform, looked at her and said, I really don't know how someone like you survived until safe day in your last life. Only then did Xiao Anning look at the somewhat familiar man, Lin Mo, the former head of the base's medical department. You all remember, she said. In disbelief, his voice suddenly grew faint. Could it be? This life wasn't born for me. Of course not, I replied to her. This life is the result of everyone's efforts. 11. Once the mutant anti-plague was extracted, the zombies vanished, leaving behind only a withered and ruined world. The safe day everyone had long hoped for became a post-war wasteland, where people lost their loved ones, their friends, and even their health. All superpowers originated from the evolution of this plague mutation. After taking the mutant antiserum, the plague factors in the superhuman's body began to fall out of balance. Superhumans started dying one after another. A year later, Lin Mo finally developed a technique to extract plague molecules from superhumans' bodies. The surviving people with special abilities voluntarily underwent surgery. The mutated viral particles extracted during the surgery unexpectedly formed a Mobius strip, so, with almost unanimous support, the survivors chose to reboot the world. People who made it to the safe day carried antibodies against the virus, so they had a 1 in 100,000 chance of retaining their memories, and as the one who absorbed source of infection no. 1. I was destined to regain my memories. It was only a matter of time. Xiao Enning gritted his teeth. So you'd already gotten your memories back long ago. You two were in this together, planning to kill me and Chu Yun. I nodded, then shook my head. The only person we intended to kill was Chu Yun. You brought this on yourself. Before his mutation, he was at his weakest. I should even thank you for taking him out of the campus, which cut off any chance of the virus spreading. Chu Yun was already doused in acid the day we rescued you. After so many days of antibody serum injections, you and the child in your womb are no longer carrying the virus. To save time and materials, Lin Mo injected Xiao Enning with the most blunt, rudimentary mutation serum, and the side effects covered her with black spots and left her skin sagging. Lin Mo said that since she liked the zombie apocalypse so much, he might as well let her stay a monster. I gave her a congratulatory smile. Congratulations, you're going to be a mom in another 6 months. After getting the final shot of the mutant antiserum, Xiao Enning would be able to leave this laboratory. After all, she still had a lot of loans waiting for her out there to pay off. 12. A year later, I graduated on time, trophy for outstanding graduate in hand and top-tier job offers in my pocket. One day, I went to the factory for an inspection. Standing at the factory gate, a woman with a face covered in dark spots and loose, sagging skin was pulling the factory manager out to greet me. Factory director, please take a look at me too. I'm a student from a prestigious university as well. I can even tighten screws. The factory manager shoved her away with obvious disgust. Go try somewhere else. Geez, just look at your face. I'd be scared you had some contagious disease. When she suddenly spotted me, her eyes flew wide open and she rushed over. Shenwei, I was wrong. We're best friends. Please help me talk to him. You know I still have to pay back my debt. Give me a job. The factory manager looked at me in confusion. Manager Shen, you know her. I dodged her and pulled the factory manager along with me. Met her before. Don't really know her. Xiao Enning was about to chase after them when a little boy ran over and grabbed her. Mom, I want KFC. Hurry up and buy me some KFC. Get lost. I'm not your mother, you little monster. Don't follow me. I let out a sigh. Ugh. I even helped her and Chu Yun end up together in this lifetime. So why was she still looking down on the fruit of their love? But whatever. I looked up at the cloudless sky and at the last month's slave wages that had just hit my phone. A quiet, steady sense of happiness welled up inside. For an ordinary person like me, I'd better not worry about the main character. The end. Story 2. At 17, I had a crush on someone. My family was poor, so I saved money for a whole year to buy him a birthday gift. The day my mom had an accident, I left school early. Just then, I heard him say to his friend with a smile, "This thing, even the third prize in a restaurant would be better than this." His friend laughed loudly and said, "I know Ranga doesn't think much of it, otherwise, give it to me. I can sell it and use the money to surf the internet a few times. If you want it, here you go." Xia ran through it to him in disgust, and his eyes happened to meet mine. Later, at the class reunion, I heard that Xia Ran had been looking for me for 8 years. When my eyes met Xia Ran's, his expression froze slightly. The male classmate holding the watch scratched his head awkwardly and then said, would you like me to give it back to you?" I looked at the watch in his hand, which was in a mess, clearly not cherished. This watch wasn't very expensive, about 1,000 yuan, but I had saved for nearly a year. I saved it bit by bit from my meal money. My eyes fell on Xia Ran's hand. He was wearing a watch today. I couldn't recognize the brand, but I was sure that the watch on his hand was much better than the one I gave him. I silently took the watch from Xia Ran's friend, looked at Xia Ran, and said slowly, "Sorry, I'll handle it myself." Xia Ran lowered his eyes, pressed his lips together, and remained silent, embarrassed. I rubbed the watch in my hand and turned to leave when I passed the first trash can at the school gate. I made up my mind and threw the watch into the trash can. I turned my head and took a look at him. He casually lifted his eyelids, with a smile on his lips and full of mockery in his eyes. I was stunned and lowered my eyes. It was so embarrassing, my unrequited love at that time. I didn't know that this look from Ciaran would almost become my nightmare. When I got home, my dad was sitting at the door, with a cheap cigarette in his mouth and a worried look on his face. My mom wasn't there. He handed me a report, which said that my mom had breast cancer. My dad took a deep drag on the cigarette and said, "The treatment for breast cancer will cost over 100,000 yuan. Your mom and I discussed it. We won't treat it. Your mom said she wants to eat the braised pork ribs I make. Go buy the ingredients. I'll go pick up your mom later." I didn't believe it. I kept flipping through the report and said in a trembling voice, "Is it confirmed?" There are often misdiagnoses in this kind of thing. I'll take mom to the hospital again tomorrow. This must be a misdiagnosis. I stubbornly looked at my dad. My dad's eyes were blood red. He just looked at me without saying a word. At that moment, my tears started flowing and I couldn't stop them. Finally, I cried and said, "I won't go to school anymore. Let's treat mom's illness." My dad lowered his head. I knew that my dad was no less sad than I was. My dad had a disabled right leg. At that time, only my mom was willing to be with him, not dislike him, and always encouraged him. Although our family was poor, my dad and mom loved each other deeply. In junior high school, classmates in my class started to have their own beliefs. I asked my dad, "Dad, what's your belief?" My dad didn't know what belief was, so I explained it to him roughly. He scratched his head shyly and said, "My belief is your mom." Later I also had my belief. I wanted to grow up, make money, and take my dad and mom to see the world. Now my dad's belief had collapsed, so had mine. I held my dad's hand and said to myself, "I won't study anymore. I'll go to work. We'll go to Beijing to treat mom's illness." My dad smoked and didn't say anything, but I had already made up my mind. I asked my dad to pick up my mom, then pack our things and go to Beijing. I myself went back to school. Halfway there, it started to rain. Pedestrians on the road were in a hurry, trying to avoid getting caught in the heavy rain. Only then did I dare to cry. The rain mixed with my tears. When I got to school, there were hardly any people left. I reached out my hand towards the dirty trash can. The stinky and pungent smell kept coming up. I rummaged through it several times, but the watch I threw away wasn't there. I bit my lip, wishing I could slap myself for throwing the watch away. I could have sold it for a few hundred yuan. I searched for hours, going through every piece of trash in the trash can, but there was no sign of the watch. I walked home in a daze. By then, there was almost no one on the street. The rain was heavy and it hurt a bit when it hit my body. When I got home, my dad still wasn't back. The once warm home now just felt cold to me. I waited and waited. Finally, a person came in a hurry and told me, "Your dad and mom jumped into the river." That year, I was in my senior year of high school. I lost both my parents and became an orphan. 8 years have passed, and I still can't forget what happened that day. I sat up in bed, turned on my phone, and found that it was only 4 o'clock. I softly and miserably called out to the empty room, "Dad, Mom." As usual, there was no response. I lowered my head. In the past 8 years they never came to see me even once. In my dreams, there was only Ciaran with a smile on his lips, his eyes full of mockery, asking me, "Do you have any self-respect, Suji?" Every time I shouted that I had self-respect, the dream would end. I couldn't fall asleep anymore, so I might as well get up and pack my things. After numbly holding the funerals for my parents that year, I left that place. I went to a new city, working while studying. It was really tough to study and work at the same time, but I didn't dare to stop. Once I stopped, I wanted to cry. I went to the hospital. The doctor said I had moderate depression and needed someone to help me get over that day, but there was no such person. After leaving for 8 years, in recent years, I increasingly wanted to go back, to see the river where my parents jumped. I wanted to jump in and ask why they were so cruel. I was really tired anyway. I was going back. I didn't reject the idea of seeing those classmates from my old class anymore, so when the class monitor asked if I would go to the class reunion, I was the first to say yes. I hadn't spoken in the class group for 8 years. I had also deleted all my classmates' contacts, including Ciaran. I bought a ticket for the earliest high-speed train. I felt very relaxed. In the past 8 years, I had never felt more relaxed than at this moment. I enjoyed the beautiful scenery outside the window and chatted with the young couple sitting next to me with a smile. The girl said, "Sister, you don't know, it was so hard for me to chase him at that time. There were so many girls chasing him, but I persisted for 2 years. Now I'm taking him to meet my parents." "Sister, you seem so happy. Are you also going home?" I think the wind on the way to see parents is sweet. I was silent for a moment, then forced a smile and said, yes, I'm also going home, to see my parents. I said the last part in a very low voice, so low that only I could hear it, but this sentence made me happy. I would see my parents soon. I hummed all the way. After getting off the high-speed train, I went straight to the place the class monitor had booked. When I arrived, most of the people were already there. As soon as I entered, the room fell silent. I sat down by myself at the place closest to the door. I put away the smile on my face. The class monitor pushed his glasses and broke the silence. Suji, you're here. I nodded. Show you. A girl who had always been at odds with me before, said in a sarcastic tone, oh, if it isn't the most difficult to invite top students. Suji, looking at your face makes me lose my appetite. Can someone remind Xiaoran not to come today? No one knew the reason why I dropped out of school back then, but they all knew that I liked Xiaoran and that I gave him a gift. The girl sitting next to Zhou Yu tugged at her. The class monitor also frowned and said, cut it out. Xiaoran has been looking for Suji for 8 years. Telling him she's here will only make him happy. Zhou Yu sneered and said, Xiaoran is kind-hearted. Who knew he would feel the need to apologize for not liking someone? Looking for her for 8 years is just to apologize to Suji. Is there anything wrong with not liking someone? Everyone knows that Suji transferred schools because Xiaoran embarrassed her. What you said makes it seem like Xiaoran likes her. Doesn't Xiaoran have someone he likes? I heard that person is a rich and beautiful girl. Besides being good-looking, what does Suji have to be worthy of his attention? A disabled father, a poverty-stricken home. Come on. The more Zhou Yu talked, the more excessive she became, and everyone else frowned. I stood up. Without showing any anger, I said, I'm not here to eat, so you don't have to worry about losing your appetite. I just came to see everyone. Now that I have, I'll leave. After saying this, I opened the door and walked out. The class monitor chased after me. He grabbed my hand and said seriously, Xiaoran really has been looking for you for 8 years. Won't you wait for him? Xiaoran's appearance appeared in my mind. He was very handsome, with beautiful eyes, but when he looked at me, there was no emotion in his eyes. And there was a mocking smile on his lips. I shook my head and said with a smile, I'm in a hurry. If you see him, please say sorry to him for me. I'm really, very sorry. The class monitor froze in place. After leaving, I bought a lot of joss paper. I burned a large amount of it in front of my parents' graves, so much that it would be enough for 100 years. After burning the paper, I went back home to take a look. Everywhere in the house was covered with dust. I didn't clean it, nor did I touch anything in the house. I stayed at the door for a long time. By then, it was completely dark. There were no lights in the countryside. I turned on my phone and saw that it was almost 11 o'clock. I took a taxi to Jinjiang. At night, Jinjiang was very calm. Occasionally, a few motorcycles passed by on the street. All of them were delivery riders. I pulled my suitcase and stopped by the bridge. No one paid attention to me because I was pulling a suitcase. They all thought I was tired from walking and was taking a break by the bridge. I waited until 12 o'clock. No one passed by anymore. I wrote a note and put it on the suitcase. Then I resolutely climbed over the railing and jumped down. The moment I jumped, I wondered if I had heard wrong, but I seemed to hear Xiaoran's voice. Damn it, don't jump, Suji. When I lost consciousness, I seemed to see Xiaoran wearing a high school uniform again, leaning against the railing of the corridor light. His coat was loosely draped over his body, a lollipop in his mouth, his brows slightly raised, and a smile in his eyes as he said, Yo, if it isn't the study committee member. In my first year of high school, I had heard of Xiaoran. The girls in the class would discuss Xiaoran every day because Xiaoran was really handsome. He was fair-skinned, with well-defined facial features, long-eyed tails. When he smiled, he had a somewhat alluring charm, unruly and flamboyant. When we were regrouped in the second year of high school, Xiaoran and I were in the same class. He sat behind me during breaks. There were always a bunch of people around my seat, chatting noisily. I wasn't used to having so many people around me, so I would take a full cup of water and pretend to go get water. In fact, I would hide by the back door. Then I heard them talking about me. What's the homeroom teacher thinking? He knows our Ranga likes beautiful girls, and yet the only girl around him is the study committee member. The homeroom teacher is too harsh. Everyone knows how many pretty girls Ranga dated in the first year of high school. Now it's not that he's not allowed to contact girls. There's the study committee member. After all, to be honest, Ranga, I've never seen someone as rustic as the study committee member, who still wears small, framed glasses these days. Her bangs are thick and long, and she wears the school uniform so neatly. She looks just like an old pedant. Ranga, you won't have any thoughts about her, right? After this sentence, There was a burst of laughter. Fuck off, this was what Xiaoran said. His voice was hoarse from puberty, but it was very nice then. He sneered and said softly, "Do I, Xiaoran, have such low standards?" I was slightly stunned. I looked at my whitened shoes and school pants, and suddenly felt a bit embarrassed. I lowered my head and didn't return to my seat until they ended the conversation during breaks. My seat never really belonged to me. There were always girls coming to find Xiaoran. Xiaoran always accepted them all. Later, the school added a swimming class. The swimming suits were to be ordered, and each set cost 180 yuan. Before class ended, the teacher told me, "The study committee member will collect this money." Zhou Yu smiled softly, raised her hand, and asked, "Teacher, everyone knows that Su Ji's family is poor. Isn't it inappropriate to give this money to Su Ji?" I clenched my hands tightly. Zhou Yu had been at odds with me since the first year of high school. I didn't expect that we would be in the same class again in the second year. It wasn't that I had a big feud with Zhou Yu. She just disliked me, adhering to the principle of the less trouble, the better. I was just about to tell the teacher to forget it. At this moment, a pair of beautiful hands with distinct knuckles suddenly stretched out in front of me. "Here you are, study committee member." I looked up. Xiaoran was looking down at me, and his eyes were extremely beautiful. I was a bit stunned for a moment. Maybe I was stunned for too long. The person next to Xiaoran nudged him and said flirtatiously, "Come on. Another one is smitten." Hearing this, I came back to my senses, but Xiaoran suddenly bent down and got closer to me. My pupils dilated. He smiled roguishly and whispered in my ear, "I know I'm handsome, but study committee member, you're not my type." I lowered my eyes, took the money from his hand, turned to look at him, nodded, and said softly, "I know." Xiaoran was stunned, raised his brows, and said, "Good, study hard, study committee member." After that, Xiaoran straightened up, tossed the basketball, and left the classroom. The other classmates in the class didn't hear what Xiaoran and I said. They just thought Xiaoran seemed to be nice to me, so they all gave me the money. Zhou Yu reluctantly gave me the money and warned me, "Stay away from Xiaoran. Look at your family background. You're like a toad trying to eat swan meat." I ignored her, silently collected all the money, and then took out my living expenses to pay for the swimming suit. After counting, when I was sure the money was enough, I immediately gave it to the teacher just after school at noon. By the time I handed in the money, they had almost finished eating. I took out a steamed bun from my bag and started eating it in the empty classroom. My mind was full of thoughts about how to find a part-time job to earn living expenses. If I asked my parents for this money, they would definitely give it to me, but I didn't want to. Halfway through eating, Xiaoran came in. He was a bit surprised to see me. I just took a glance and then lowered my eyes, continuing to eat the steamed bun in silence. Xiaoran walked straight to his seat. Suddenly, he poked me and said in a hoarse voice, "Have you finished eating, study committee member?" I looked at the 2-bite left steamed bun, stuffed it into my mouth in one go, then turned my head and nodded silently. He turned sideways and lifted up his school uniform. There was a large abrasion on his waist, still oozing blood. He tilted his head and smiled at me. "Can you help me apply some medicine?" I quickly chewed the steamed bun in my mouth, nodded, and said softly, "Okay." I walked over and squatted beside him, rummaging through my pocket for the medicine, and frowned, asking, "Why didn't you buy iodine? Alcohol will hurt a lot." Xiaoran chuckled softly. A real man is never afraid of pain. As soon as Xiaoran finished speaking, I dipped a cotton ball in alcohol and wiped his wound. I looked up at Xiaoran and asked, "A real man?" Xiaoran looked down at me, stunned for a moment, then smiled and said, "Study committee member, your eyelashes are so long." His tone was extremely casual. I knew Xiaoran was just saying it casually. I lowered my eyes, but my hands pressed harder. Xiaoran didn't make a sound, but his abdominal muscles were as hard as a board, which was enough to show that he was in great pain. Finally, unable to bear it, Xiaoran gritted his teeth and said, "It really hurts, take it easy." My hand paused, and I subconsciously blew gently on the wound. After blowing, I was stunned, and so was Xiaoran. Then neither of us spoke again. After applying the medicine to Xiaoran, our relationship remained that of strangers. During breaks, I could even see him sending other girls back to the dormitory. There was a big tree in front of our dormitory. Xiaoran and that girl were standing under the big tree. The girl was very good looking, a senior from the third year of high school. She stood on tiptoe, pouting her lips at Xiaoran. When Xiaoran bent down, he suddenly glanced in my direction. I quickly turned my head away. Xiaoran shifted his gaze, bent down to pinch the girl's face, and then left with a smile. I don't know why, but I always paid a little more attention to Xiaoran. Lying on the dormitory bed, I thought about it and finally came to the conclusion that I liked his face. Just looking at it was nice. Later, When I happened to see Xiaoran walking with other girls, I would quickly walk to a place where I couldn't see him, or I would walk far behind, not even raising my head. I thought this way I wouldn't offend Xiaoran. The next time Xiaoran got injured, he came to me with the medicine. This time it was his arm. He propped one hand on the desk, raised his injured arm, and winked at me, saying, "Study committee member." As soon as I picked up the bag, I saw the senior from the third year of high school coming. I suddenly stood up from my seat, and my head hit Xiaoran's chin. "Study committee member, if you want me dead, you don't have to hit me with your head. What if I become stupid?" As he spoke, he reached out his hand towards my head. I dodged back, avoiding Xiaoran's hand. Seeing the senior getting closer, I quickly bowed to Xiaoran and then ran away. Xiaoran stayed where he was, his expression a bit gloomy and hard to read. The swimming suits arrived, and the first class in the afternoon was a swimming class. Everyone changed into their swimming suits. I had never worn such revealing clothes before, so I put on a coat over my swimming suit. Wow, holy shit, Rangu has long legs. Hearing this voice, I turned my head and looked around. Then the voice sounded again, full of surprise. Fuck, it's actually the study committee member. Only then did I realize they were talking about me. I nervously tugged at my clothes. My eyes met Xiaoran's, and I subconsciously looked him up and down. The swimming suit was tight, outlining his well-defined abdominal muscles. He had broad shoulders and a narrow waist, a typical inverted triangle figure, but he looked a bit annoyed. I lowered my head. Indeed, Xiaoran didn't like me, and he probably didn't like me looking at him either. When we gathered, the teacher frowned when he saw me wearing glasses and said, "Didn't you get a pair of prescription swimming goggles? How can you swim like this? Don't you have any common sense?" Zhou Yu laughed and said, "Teacher, you're really right. Her dad is lame, and her mom didn't even finish primary school. Their family is so poor that they might not even be able to fill their stomachs." "Teacher, how would she know that you need to wear swimming goggles for swimming?" Zhou Yu seemed to be explaining for me, but in fact, she revealed my family situation in detail. The teacher looked surprised, then fell silent for a moment and said dryly, "If your myopia isn't too severe, you can take off your glasses." Zhou Yu raised her hand again. "Teacher, she's a top student. She reads books every day. How can her myopia not be severe?" At this time, Xia ran impatiently, "Tisk, Ed," and said, "Are you the only one with a mouth? Aren't you noisy?" Zhou Yu's face turned red with embarrassment, but she didn't dare to retort. She just fell silent and lowered her head. The teacher didn't mention it anymore. I took off my glasses when I got into the water. Because of my high myopia, I stayed alone by the side, afraid of bumping into someone. Despite my worries, I still bumped into someone while practicing, because I couldn't open my eyes in the water without glasses. So when I surfaced, the first thing I saw was a set of abdominal muscles. I quickly apologized. "Sorry, are you okay?" After apologizing, I looked up to see who it was. My eyes met a face with a half-smile. "Study committee member." My eyes widened, and my feet slipped, causing me to sink into the water. At this moment, a hand pulled me up. I gasped for breath, looking at the blurry figure of Xiaoran in front of me, my chest heaving. Xiaoran moved closer, carefully examining my face, then smiled and said, "Study committee member, do you have some strange aesthetic quirks?" "What do you mean?" "I mean," Xiaoran leaned down and whispered in my ear, "I take back what I said about you not being my type." I was stunned, and my ears quickly turned red until my whole face was burning. I broke free from his grasp and swam to the shore in a panic, putting on my glasses that gave me a sense of security, then let out a long sigh. I scanned the swimming pool, and there was no sign of Xiaoran. The blush on my face gradually faded, and my heartbeat returned to normal. "Don't believe it, Xiaoran is just teasing you." I was warning my past self, but she couldn't hear me, and I woke up. I looked around the room. It was very simple, with only a computer desk, an e-sports chair, and a computer. My clothes had been changed. Didn't die, huh? I forced a bitter smile and walked out of the room groggily. I found a girl leaning on the sofa, watching TV. When she was happy, she would pick up an apple from the table and take a bite. It seemed this was her home, and maybe she was the one who saved me. I was just about to thank her. She frowned, stood up, and her expression instantly turned bad. She scolded me. "Who are you? Why are you in Xiaoran's house?" I was stunned. What did she say? She said this was Xiaoran's house. Seeing me stunned, she folded her arms and walked up to me. "Hey, I'm asking you a question. Why are you in Xiaoran's house and sleeping in his room?" The girl's face looked very ugly, showing a possessive look. I lowered my eyes and said, "I don't know him. He saved me." "You're his girlfriend, right? Thank him for me. I'll leave now." "You'd better leave quickly." I walked towards the suitcase in the corner. When I went out, I wasn't paying attention and bumped into someone. It was very hard, and it hurt my head. I covered my forehead, looked up to apologize, and when I saw Ciaran's face clearly, my pupils dilated, and I involuntarily took 2 steps back. Ciaran hadn't changed much. The only difference was that he had lost his youthful air and became more mature and charming. He was holding groceries in his hand. His eyes moved to my hand pulling the suitcase, and he sneered, "What, going to jump into the river again?" I looked at Ciaran. This time, I didn't avoid his gaze and said softly, "Ciaran, am I in your way?" Hearing this sentence, Ciaran's expression was stunned for a moment. Coming back to his senses, he asked, "Suji, want to have a meal?" I shook my head. "No, I'm in a hurry." Ciaran lowered his eyes, and his hand holding the groceries tightened. "Can you stop trying to die?" I looked up at Ciaran seriously and said, "You shouldn't have saved me. I just also want to have a home." Ciaran's eyes lit up. Then I added, "A home where my parents are. Although my dad is lame and my mom is sick, the family you would never want to encounter is what I dream of day and night." Ciaran fell silent. I walked out, and Ciaran grabbed my arm, saying, "Suji, I'm getting married." I paused, let out a soft sigh. "Really? Then congratulations. Will you come to my wedding?" Ciaran turned to look at me. His eyes were as charming as before. "Is my presence what makes your wedding perfect?" I asked. Ciaran looked at me for a long time. Then his thin lips parted and he said one word, "Yes." I smiled at him and said in a light-hearted tone, "Then I'll come. I won't leave you with any regrets." "When is it?" "In a month." "Okay." I agreed to Ciaran and rented a house here for a month. In high school, I thought Ciaran liked me too, so I saved money for a long time to buy him a watch, but the truth proved that it was just my wishful thinking. It was an embarrassing unrequited love. Now that Ciaran is getting married, I will personally draw a full stop to my teenage unrequited love and this part of my life. The next day, in the middle of the night, Ciaran knocked on my door. When I opened it, a strong smell of alcohol hit me. It was raining, and he was soaked through. Ciaran hugged me tightly, burying his head in my neck. Instantly, I felt a large patch of my neck get wet. Ciaran turned his head and whispered in my ear, "Suji, I've been looking for you for 8 years. You didn't give any hint of your whereabouts. Do you hate me?" Ciaran's tone was a bit aggrieved, and his words were a bit slurred. I turned my head and said, "Ciaran, you're drunk." Ciaran straightened up and took out a watch. I was slightly stunned. This was the watch I threw into the trash can back then. "I found it. Don't throw it away again." I lowered my head and said softly, "It's not a valuable thing. Don't keep it." Ciaran's breathing became slightly heavy. He suddenly pinched my chin, forcing me to raise my head. His eyes were filled with a strong sense of possessiveness. The next moment, his kiss landed heavily, and he said in a hoarse voice, mixed with slurred words, "Suji, I regret it. I shouldn't have been jealous." I widened my eyes, just as I was about to step back. The hand Ciaran had around my waist tightened, forcefully holding me in place so that I couldn't move back until I was pressed against him. Ciaran's tongue pried open my teeth, probing deeper. His hands held me firmly, not allowing me any room to retreat. Little by little, he made me reek of alcohol, his kiss burning hot. The kiss I had thought about for a long time in high school happened at this moment. I looked at Ciaran expressionlessly, then suddenly smiled and said, "Ciaran, sleep with me. How can a person just take without giving?" In high school, you played with me like watching a performing monkey. Even a monkey gets tired. It needs some sweetness to keep performing. What do you think, Ciaran? Ciaran frowned, reached out and stroked the stray hair by my cheek, and said softly, "Suji, you're not well. Come with me to see a doctor tomorrow." "Okay." Ciaran's tone was extremely gentle. I tilted my head and saw the girl following Ciaran. It was raining, and she was just standing quietly behind Ciaran. I thought she was a bit unfamiliar at that time, but now I remembered she and Ciaran were from the same world. They grew up together. However, she didn't know me and didn't know about all the girls related to Ciaran since the swimming class. Ciaran seemed to have turned on some switch and always liked to tease me when I was doing exercises. Ciaran leaned against the window and snatched the workbook from my hand, teasing, "Study committee member." "Still studying," I stammered. There's an exam coming up." The person next to us laughed and said, "Ranga, why do you always tease the study committee member? Look, you've made her nervous." Ciaran raised his eyebrows, leaned closer to look at my face, and said as he looked, "Let me take a look." I kept my head down. When playing basketball, Ciaran refused the water given by other girls and said with a smile, "Sorry, the study committee member of our class brought me water. How could I bring him water?" After hearing this, I ran to buy water for him later. During the sports meeting, Ciaran brought a girl. During that time, Ciaran didn't even give me a glance. I saw him coaxing that girl, little princess, where can I find an umbrella for you? Isn't it okay to get a little sun tanned? The girl was fair-skinned and very pretty. I silently handed over my umbrella. The girl didn't even look at me and said, "It's so ugly. I won't use it. Whoever wants it can take it." Sia ran through the umbrella back to me and said, all right, if you don't want to use it, then don't. I won't play basketball anymore." "Okay, then you won't get sun tanned, princess." This was the first time I saw Xiaoran coaxing someone else. "Suji," Xiaoran called me. I came back to my senses and nodded at him distantly. "I'll go see a doctor. I promise I'll be healthy before your wedding." "Xiaoran, don't worry, I won't ruin your wedding. Please rest assured, you can leave now." Xiaoran was already at the door. I just closed the door, separating Xiaoran and the girl. Xiaoran knocked on the door and shouted, "Suji, Suji." Then I heard the girl's voice, but I couldn't make out what she was saying. But Xiaoran didn't knock on the door again. I took a few pills and lay down on the bed. Suddenly, I had a dream about my parents during the summer vacation of my second year in high school. Our family was harvesting rice. Zhou, in order to embarrass me, called most of the classmates in the class to help with the harvest. My father and mother took out the best food to entertain them. My parents didn't notice the look of disgust in their eyes, but I did. Xiaoran was the first to speak. "Uncle, this fish is delicious. Is it wild?" My father nodded with a smile. "Yes, there are a lot in the river. I still have a few in the tank. You can take them back to eat." Xiaoran ate happily. After that, he went to help with the rice harvesting. He didn't know how to do it, so I taught him. He pinched my face with a smile and said, "Suji, you know so many things." Then he started working silently. After a while, the others couldn't keep going and started doing other things. Seeing this, I ran to the grocery store and bought a big bag of popsicles. I took them back and distributed them to everyone. Zhou folded her arms and said, "We're helping you with the work. You should at least treat us to something better. How can you be so shameless to take out such cheap popsicles?" I paused and said, "These are good for quenching thirst." Throughout the process, Xiaoran did the most work. My father kept praising him. One by one, the others left, and only Xiaoran worked until it was dark. When it was dark, the road became difficult to walk on. My father said, "Young man, stay for the night. I'll ask Xiaoji to make a bed for you." My room was on the second floor. Xiaoran made a makeshift bed on the balcony of the second floor. The house wasn't soundproof, and I could hear Xiaoran tossing and turning, unable to fall asleep, so I lit a mosquito repellent incense and took it to him. As soon as I walked up to him, he opened his eyes and said with a smile, "What, does the study committee member want to do something to me while I'm asleep?" I put down the mosquito repellent incense, squatted down, and asked softly, "Does your body hurt?" Xiaoran was used to a pampered life. When had he ever done farm work? Even if he didn't say anything, I knew his body must be hurting. In the dark, I couldn't see Xiaoran's expression clearly. He was silent for a while, then said in a hoarse voice, "It does hurt." I put my hand on his arm. "I'll give you a massage. It'll feel better when the muscles are loosened up." I silently massaged Xiaoran's arm. I felt his body temperature getting higher and higher, so I asked, "Are you hot?" He coughed lightly twice and said, "No, not hot." The study committee member really knows how to massage. I feel much better. After a moment of silence, I thanked him. "Xiaoran, thank you for today. If it weren't for you, my parents and I would have to harvest for many more days." Suddenly, Xiaoran put one hand on the back of my head and lowered me a little. All I could see clearly were his eyes, which were burning with passion. He asked, "Can I kiss you?" I was stunned, but I nodded. After I nodded, it was Xiaoran's turn to be stunned. He let go of his hand and said, "I'm just kidding." I didn't stop my massage and just replied with an When the third year of high school started, Xiaoran became a bit cold towards me. At that time, I was already saving money. I thought I could repay Xiaoran for his help because I had good grades. Many people often came to me to ask questions. One of them was Yu Jia. He could come to me 7 or 8 times a day. When Xiaoran passed by, he said with a sneer, "Yu Jia, do you treat the study committee member as a free teacher?" Then he bent down and looked at me. "Suji, can you get rich this way?" His tone was somewhat sarcastic. I frowned, not knowing what I had done to offend him, but I didn't say anything. It wasn't until I gave the watch I had saved for a long time to Xiaoran. I left school early that day and heard what Xiaoran said. Only then did I understand that Xiaoran had never really respected me. He treated me like a kitten or a puppy. When he was happy, he would play with me. When he was unhappy, he would leave me alone. There was no real affection at all. After getting up, I went to the hospital. The doctor asked me, "What's the situation?" I said I was previously diagnosed with moderate depression. The doctor let out a long sigh and said, "Moderate, still controllable, let's do another examination." I nodded and took the examination form, but halfway through, I suddenly changed my mind, so I left. As soon as I walked out of the hospital, I met Ciaran waiting at the hospital entrance. He walked towards me and asked, "Did you have the examination? What kind of medicine did the doctor prescribe?" I was a bit annoyed, but still smiled and lied. "I did everything. The doctor said I'm in a good state." Ciaran frowned. "Suji, you know, your eyes are especially focused when you lie." I put away my smile and looked up at him, asking, "Ciaran, do you like me? Does your girlfriend know you're so concerned about me?" I wasn't afraid that Ciaran would mock me for asking this question, but what Ciaran said was something I never expected. He took out a cigarette, lit it, took a puff, and said with a smile, "Yeah, I like you." Ciaran's words exploded in my ears. I was only shocked for a second, then I smiled and said, "I don't like you, Ciaran. I know, I'm chasing you." Ciaran extinguished the cigarette in his hand. "Then die with me, Ciaran." I stood there waiting for Ciaran's answer. He looked at me for a long time, so long that I lost patience. Just as I turned my head, I heard Ciaran's voice from behind. He said, "Okay, then." He took my hand and asked, "How do you want to die? By jumping into the river, or jumping off a building?" I fell silent. "You're going to get married, Ciaran." But Ciaran seemed determined. He sneered, "The marriage was originally a lie to keep you. What marriage am I going to have? And who am I going to marry? What about that girl?" "You mean Jiang Shui?" Ciaran asked. I nodded. "So that girl's name was Jiang Shui." Ciaran rubbed his temples. "She's my brother's girlfriend. It wouldn't be good for me to steal her." "Right, that girl was Ciaran's brother's girlfriend. But you clearly treated her." I didn't finish my sentence. Ciaran smiled. "Of course I have to treat her well, otherwise, my brother will really beat me up. Since we're talking about it, let's just say it all. She came to me last night to persuade me, and back then, I said those things because I was jealous. The gift you gave me, it was very nice." I felt a bit dazed, as if I saw the high school Ciaran smiling at me and saying, "Study committee member, this watch is really nice." After everything was out in the open, the barrier in my heart should have been broken. But I still felt very depressed. I pushed Ciaran away and said seriously, "But the Suji now is not the Suji back then. You can leave now." Ciaran didn't leave. Instead, he followed me closely, not leaving me for a second. I was a bit impatient. "You're going to delay me from finding a boyfriend like this." I just wanted Ciaran to leave me alone. As for having a boyfriend, it was just something I made up. But Ciaran still stubbornly followed me. "Suji, wouldn't it be good if I served you together with him?" My face turned a bit red, then I sneered. "Do you still have abdominal muscles? What can you use to compete with others? Your thick skin." Ciaran lifted his clothes, grabbed my hand, and forcefully made it slide up and down on his abdomen, saying in a hoarse voice, "Do I have them? Touch more." I tried to pull my hand back, but Ciaran didn't allow it. He even pulled my hand lower. He smiled at me, leaned close to my ear, and said, "I've wanted to do this since the first time we had swimming class." Ciaran became increasingly shameless. He accompanied me every day, taking me to many out-of-the-way places, but they all had one thing in common: they were all places for worship. "When did you start believing in these things? And you believe in so many different things." He grinned and said, "Yeah, I hope they can all bless you." I was stunned. Ciaran pestered me like this for a year, and I finally gave in. We quickly got married. Ciaran's parents didn't care about it at all. Ciaran smiled and said to me, "I'm used to it. From childhood to adulthood, neither my brother nor I have been cared for by them. They just give us some money and food." Only then did I know that Ciaran's parents had a very bad relationship. Ciaran's father had a mistress outside, and his mother also had her own lover. Their marriage was already in name only. If it weren't for the company, they would have divorced long ago. Fortunately, Ciaran still had his brother. Later, I spent every day happily with Ciaran. I laughed a lot, but I knew my illness actually hadn't gotten better. I secretly went for an examination. The doctor said it was severe depression and had been like this for some time. I had severe somatization symptoms, but I hid it from Ciaran until one day, I unconsciously took a large amount of sleeping pills. When I woke up, Ciaran was by my bedside with red-rimmed eyes. He rubbed his face against my hand. "Suji, you're not allowed to die." When Ciaran went out to buy me food, Jiang Shui came. She looked at me, clenched her fists, and sneered, "Suji, do you know that Ciaran's brother died when he was in his senior year of high school? Even if you feel sorry for Ciaran, please don't die." "Okay, he never said that," I said softly. Jiang Shui turned her head. "He was thinking about you. He didn't want you to pity him. He wanted to cure you. But who will cure him?" He's always so stupid. At this moment, there was love in Jiang Shui's eyes. Jiang Shui had fallen in love with Xia Ran. I looked at her. You will cure him, right? Jiang Shui's expression became serious. She looked into my eyes earnestly and said, if I could, in these 8 years, you wouldn't have been in the picture at all. He only sees me as his sister-in-law, Su Ji. He can't live without you. After hearing Jiang Shui's words, I tried my best to receive treatment at the beginning. The effect wasn't obvious. Xia Ran knew, but he didn't say anything. Late at night, after testing whether I was asleep, Xia Ran kissed my forehead and said, all saved bit by bit from the meal money. I closed my eyes, my eyelashes fluttering nervously. Xia Ran hugged me, stroking my back again and again to comfort me. That night, Xia Ran and I seemed to have made a decision. Since it was really painful, we would die together. When everything was ready, I suddenly started vomiting violently. After going to the hospital for an examination, the report showed that I was pregnant. The fetus was already 4 weeks old. I was stunned, and so was Xia Ran. At this moment, the barrier in my heart seemed to suddenly break. I turned my head and smiled at Xia Ran. Then, we held hands and went home in the sunset. Xia Ran excitedly touched my belly and then said, shall we go fishing and eat fish, Su Ji? I seemed to see my father smiling and talking, and my mother listening gently. I nodded and said softly, okay.